Grandstand AFL on ABC Radio and Grandstand Digital.
The roar around the MCG on September the 2nd, 2000, an early September grand final given the Olympics in Sydney later that year. Essendon versus Melbourne. Welcome to a special edition of Grandstand AFL as we recall the 2000 grand final some 20 years on with two participants from the day and Essendon's last premiership team. I'm Corbin Middlemass. Matt Clinch is alongside me to call the action. Hello, Clinchy.
Hello, Corby. Great to be with you again for another one of these grand final recalls. 2000, just 17 years of age for me, and I remember I had two Melbourne supporting brothers, so they were high on hopes, and the day lives with me around 99 and Essendon's failure in that year and the build-up, of course, to the 2000 season. Top of the ladder, lost just the one game for the season, and everyone was expecting them to win on grand final day, but you just never quite know.
Back when the pre-season comp meant something, they won that and went the whole way through the year, so 30 games in total, had lost just one in the penultimate round to the Western Bulldogs. Both teams big winners in the quali and the prelim, both beating Carlton and North Melbourne in the final series en route. A regular member of Grandstand AFL, Adam Ramanauskas. He was the youngest member of Essendon's premiership team in 2000. Hello, Rama.
Hello, yes, and obviously very special memories. Looking forward to watching this game again. I haven't watched it for a number of years now, so yeah, should be exciting, obviously for me. And like I said, some really fond memories.
And one man who had played in a grand final previously, of course, a member of Essendon's 1993 premiership side, one of seven to have played in a premiership previously for the Bombers, here at 25 years of age in his 165th match. Smoking Joe Mercedes. Joe, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, mate. Looking forward to watching the game. A bit like Rama, I haven't watched it for a while, so good to see. Looking forward to watching it.
Do you remember these moments just before the siren?
Not overly, to be honest with you. I think we were all focused on exactly what we had to do. There was a couple of us that had particular roles that day. Mark Johnson there on the screen. He had Jeff Farmer that day. Dustin Fletcher with David Neitz. Chris Heffernan had the big job on Shane Woden, who was a Brownlow medalist that year. And then myself, I had the role on Adam Uze. So they're the four matchups that we focused in on. And then, you've got Joe, who's able to run around and basically do what he wants.
Melbourne were the rightful number one contender. They'd won 10 of their last 11 leading in, trying to win their first flag in 36 years, while Essendon 23 wins from 24 starts in the 2000 premiership season. Melbourne winning the toss, kicking to the city end on Grandstand AFL. The recall from 2000, you with Matt Clinch.
White and Barnes do battle in the middle of the ground, and White with a massive tap. The Bombers are able to clear it on half back. Melbourne kicking to the city end. Overrunning the footy was Rigoni. Charging back in there, Leon Celli for Melbourne. A free kick going the way of the D's, a hold, and Rigoni will take it at right half forward. Chips it forward. Schwartz on 50. Gathers. Looks towards goal. It's on line. Neitz takes the mark. Up against the left goalpost. David Neitz for the dream start for Melbourne. He'll be on a tight angle. Up against the right behind post. Just a step inside from the boundary. Melbourne for the perfect start, having gone forward with the opening passage of play. Neitz with the banana or the snap. Steps out, snaps with his left and hits the post. Straight into the post. And Melbourne with the opening behind of the match.
And this is always a situation that we liked at Essendon. Fletch was a beautiful kick, whether it was a long kick or a short kick. More often than not, he would hit the target with his kick-ins, and that would always launch a lot of our attacks. We were always a very direct team in 2000, so you'll see Fletch go long quite often to try and get the momentum and the ball going forward.
First grand final between these two teams since 1959. So a long while we've seen this matchup on grand final day until they met here in 2000. A long kick from Fletcher off hands out of bounds at half back for Essendon. A late change for Melbourne, so Ben Beams came into their lineup, the 18-year-old, who was the youngest player on the ground from either team, replaced Cameron Bruce, who didn't quite get up after playing a starring role in the comeback in the qualifying final 2 weeks, or 4 weeks, 3 weeks earlier against Carlton. That game, Melbourne kicked 7 goals to 2 in the final quarter to beat the Blues, give themselves the week off in the home prelim. We're going to have another stoppage here, half forward for the D's. So Barnes, first year back at Essendon, won the tap, but Schwartz emerges with the footy, kicks down to half forward, and an intercept mark taken by Heffernan at half back for the Bombers.
A really underrated player, Chris Heffernan. Joe Mercedes could talk a lot about Hef, how important he was to the Essendon midfield that year.
Yeah, Hef was a great player, mate. Was my number one stopper. He went to the most durable and the best player of the opposition, and most times he shut him down and got the ball himself, which is very important to be a great tagger.
Solomon at half forward for the Bombers, kicks them inside 50. Lucas sliding in, trying to knock it out. Nicholson there, trying to lock the footy in for Melbourne. Long slides in. Ward knocks it out. Leoncelli for Melbourne gathers on the defensive 50. A bouncing ball in the middle of the ground. Hardwick trying to gather under pressure from Farmer. Farmer on hands and knees gets the hand pass clear. Phoebe tackle just as he got his kick away. It bounces into the middle of the ground as far as Solomon. He slips over. It is taken high. And it'll be a free kick going the way. In fact, it's going to be a Melbourne free kick to Brad Green, one of 2 teenagers out there with their own Adam Ramanauskas.
So Green on the outer edge of the centre square, kicks down to half forward. Schwartz again the target. Wallace goes the punch. Loose footy. Blumfield runs onto it at half back. Kicks the Bombers down the southern wing. Heffernan again the target. Great little nudge on Woden and beats him hands down. Turns and heads down to half forward. Wants Carousella. Takes the mark. Still too far from goal. 70 out. He loads up. Kicks to the top of the goal square. Barnes has got it. Spills it. Top of the goal square, Rigoni, he's tackled, Hurd locks him up, the umpire calls for it. A ball up.
And that's quite typical of Barnes. He's dropped an absolute soda. And I think you'll find that 1 or 2 of his family members might have had a little bit of money on him in those days for first goal. When you're allowed to do that type of stuff.
White and Barnes, Nicholson, third man up. It comes down to Hurd, who snaps across his body and puts through the opening goal of the 2000 grand final. Started at the right goalpost, just cut back enough. And after Melbourne had the first behind of the match through David Neitz, the Bombers with the opening goal, they're 1 straight 6 to the Demons are behind.
And that was the beauty for us in 2000. If you look at that stoppage, it's only forwards inside the forward 50, whereas all the midfielders are staying outside our forward 50, so you can set the ground up really well. That was our real one-wood, was our really good players played in our forward line. Hurd, McCurry, Carousella, Blumfield, Michael Long on this day. They were all playing inside our forward 50, so midfielders didn't need to get down there.
White wins the tap in the middle for Melbourne, down to Power, kicks to centre half forward. Schwartz can't take the mark, spills to Solomon. He's wrapped up in the tackle. Umpire lets him roll. Loose footy. No, free kick coming back. It's going to be an Essendon free kick. And player held without it was Solomon. Already had his grand final badge ripped off his jumper in the opening couple of minutes. Dons with the first through James Hurd. Solomon straight up the middle to Hurd, who takes the sprawling mark. Dropping to his knees, attacking edge of the centre square. Looks for Lloyd out in the pocket. Good punch from Ingerson, gets it away from him. There's Mercedes. Hand pass back to Lloyd on that beautiful left boot. He shoots but misses. Out to the right or behind. Essendon 1-1, Melbourne 1 behind.
And you're never disrespectful to any opponent, but when we saw Alistair Nicholson with the James Hurd matchup to start, we knew Hurdy was going to be in, obviously, for a good day. It just wasn't a natural matchup for Nicholson with the way Hurd was able to move around the ground.
So you can remember early stages of this match where he's starting to feel like the game was finding a rhythm?
Oh, yeah, early we did. We knew they were going to come out pretty hard, be pretty physical. And I think a few of their players were overawed. Our team was a lot more settled, I think, with the experienced head, keeping these young blokes in check like Rama. But it was a pretty good start, and Melbourne thought they were probably half a chance when I think they got the first shot on goal, and they get a goal pretty quickly here too.
Joe Mercedes and Adam Ramanauskas with you. Melbourne going forward. Powell receives the hand pass, gets to 45, steadies, puts through the Demons first. Stephen Powell with the opening goal for Melbourne to lock scores up at 1-1-7 apiece. Of course, spent some time at the Western Bulldogs, but Stephen Powell had a great season in 2000, averaging 23 disposals and kicked 32 goals for the year.
Yeah, he was a good midfielder. We knew he was an attacking midfielder, so He loved to push forward, as you said, Clinchy, and to kick those goals. And he was quite damaging, because what he often did, he started at half forward, then would drift up into the midfield. So he'd lose his opponent quite easily. So we had to be on guard a lot for that early in the game.
And Rammer, before you say it, mate, I wasn't playing him at that stage. Mate.
I thought you were. You were trailing him in there.
Back in the middle, Barnes slaps it down straight to Uze, though. Gets the centre clearance for Melbourne. Leon Shelley palms it over the top to Schwartz. Melbourne go inside 50 and hits up Neitz, who takes the mark, skidding through the left forward pocket. Joe, you were one of 17 that played in the prelim the year earlier, of course, that Essendon lost to Carlton. Going into a game like this, high stakes, red hot favourite, lost one game all year. Was there some anxiety in the group because of that?
I don't think so. I always say, when people ask, the prelim finals are the hardest to win, because when you get the grand final, well, you know the end's happening that day. But after we got through Carlton, we played Carlton the prelim in 2000 as well. So once we got over them in the prelim final, they were a bit of our bogey team, what happened the year before, but once we got to Melbourne, we were pretty comfortable in our own ability that we could win. If we just, if we played 100% to our ability, we're going to be okay.
Neitz missed the shot, so Melbourne ahead 1-2 to 1-1. Early stages opening term.
And those two misses from Neitz earlier in the game were actually important for us. We knew Neitz was a player that was he's a super player, obviously, but he's a real confidence player. So those misses actually helped our team, and obviously Dustin Fletcher, his direct opponent.
Fletcher with a long kick in, found Barnes, almost a half forward, no mark claim. Long knocked the ball forward, Lucas gathers, gets the hand pass away. Here's a chance for Carosella, he won't miss. He steadies from 35 metres out and puts through the second for the Dons. The Bombers 2-1-13, leading Melbourne 1-2-8.
And if you look at that passage of play, Joey, you see all the Essendon boys going to Michael Long here. Great courage by Mark McCurry, but Longy is the one. He was able to create those little turnovers by just getting a hand in and taking the ball forward for us.
Because Longy wasn't big on possessions. He wasn't one to get 25, 30 touches, but he'd have probably 10 to 15 of those 1%ers every game, and that's what made him such a great player, just his little deft touches and ability to create pressure.
Mentioned earlier, Joe, 17 backing up from the prelim the year before. The 5 that are the new faces, obviously Rammer is one, Jason Johnson, John Barnes, first year back at Essendon. And probably, I think, part of the narrative that people forget, no Lucas, no Hurd that day for Essendon in the 99 prelim.
Yeah, 100%. That's two big players to miss. You slot them back in, I think we might win 99 as well. But, they got back in for this grand final and, played very well.
Melbourne.
That's 100 goals.
Yeah.
Between Hurd and Lucas there.
Oh, bad turnover from Johnson coming out of defence. Powell puts it back over his head. He's got 2 and Melbourne back in front. 2-2 to 2-1. D's by a point. 13 and a half to come in the opening term.
It's a great mark by Mark Johnson, obviously in that passage of play, but just probably bit off a little bit more than he can chew. We used to love going always back through the corridor. That was our play. We wanted to take the ball as often as we could back through the corridor, because to get the ball to Lloyd, Lucas, Hurd as quickly as we can, one out, we always thought they were going to win that contest. So the runner wouldn't have come out to Mark Johnson there and said, don't do that. The runner would have come out and encouraged him to do that again.
Melbourne back in front by a point. 13 minutes to go in the first quarter. White wins down the tap for Melbourne. No room to break clear as Lanchelli's tackled.
It's the 4th lead change already in the first 6 minutes of the game.
Jeff White with the big padding on both legs. Schwartz moves in to do the ruck work for Melbourne. Barnes wins down the tap though. Ramanaskas with a little tap out. Here's a chance for the Dons to go forward once more. Mercedes with the kick to half forward. Lloyd underneath it. McCurry spoils it down from behind. Long onto it. Hand pass. Tackle. Melbourne intense. Gathered though. Still a chance. Blumfield trying to get it forward for the Dons. Can't do so. Melbourne with a chance through White. He's tackled by Long. Shuffles out a hand pass. Schwartz has a go. He can't clear the congestion. It's hot at the footy. And he's going to be penalised, I think. Maybe just given the benefit of the doubt. A ball up just short of half forward with the Demons leading by a point.
That's the little things you don't see. I think a lot of supporters would see Essendon as a skillful team, but we're also very tough and hungry for the football.
Here's Ward out of the centre for Melbourne. Kicks deep. Johnson leading Farmer to the footy, and Mark Johnson takes the mark. Last line of defence. Across the goal face to Fletcher. From the back pocket, that long kick down the southern wing. Bounces out in front of Lloyd to run onto. And there's a little bit of space up the ground. He turns and looks inside the forward 50. Long kick down to half forward. Blumfield chasing, collects just inside the boundary line. Onto his right boot, centering ball. Barnes down there, one grab, second, third. Mark not paid. Shoots a hand pass over to Heffernan. Can't boot the ball. And into the goalpost it goes. All knotted up again at 14 points apiece.
So John Barnes, as much of a larrikin as he is, he's a very smart footballer. Early in the game, he realised Jeff White was starting to drift into our forward half and try and be that loose man in defence. So Barnesy, you'll notice, gets forward a lot in the opening couple of quarters to try and keep Jeff White accountable.
Stephen Phoebe with the kicking duties into the pocket for Collins, who kicks to half-back. Still a chance for Melbourne to make it work through Robinson, who gathers it right half-back. Kicks it forward, Rigoni back with the flight, couldn't juggle the mark. Solomon onto it for the Dons. Feeds the hand pass away to Macedia, now to Lucas in the middle of the ground. He kicks to half-forward, coming out, Caracella juggles the mark. 52 metres out, spots a player free, puts it into the vacant region, and a great juggling mark claims. Blumfield takes the mark, just slightly right of centre, about 40 metres out from goal.
From memory, Rama, they both had pretty good days, didn't they?
Yeah, they
Barnes
did.
And Jeff White.
Yeah, they did. They both had good days. And I sort of make mention of Caracella and Blumfield here. Both those guys are playing on half-forward flanks, but they're both 6'3".
Yeah.
And they're really, really tricky matchups. So you see there Blumfield taking that mark in between two Melbourne players. He did that week in, week out. He'll take 6 or 7 marks every week because he was just a couple of centimetres always taller than his direct opponent.
He'd play that midfield forward role where he'd start on the wing or start on ball and then drift forward because none of the midfielders were tall enough or couldn't jump high enough to sort of keep with him.
Blumfield shot on goal, pushes across the face, a minor score. Essendon lead by a point.
It's a tough position, isn't it, to play half forward? But and really after this, the era after this in footy, it's become positionless, and you've got midfielders running around in those spots. But they were true high quality exponents at the half forward craft in Caracella and Blumfield.
Well, the other one that we always forget, who I still think's the best overhead mark that I've seen, is Mark McCurry.
Yep,
he was just an absolute superstar, Merckx.
The good thing about this year, and the coach was let us pretty much do what we wanted, and so we had 6 of the half forwards wanted to always have a go on the ball, so we just floated in and out. So we had a set position, but as I said, Sheeds gave us that licence to pretty much play wherever we thought suited.
Voice of Joe Mercedes alongside Adam Ramanauskas as we recall the 2000 grand final. Some 20 years on, stoppage at half-back, advantage applied, and Power gets the long kick forward for Melbourne. One bounce to Swart, shoots a hand pass inside, a fumble for Green. Sweating on him, Hardwick. Hardwick wins the footy and then bounces his kick down the wing. Leon Shelley went without it. Hurd scoops up. Little melee on behind the ball. Essendon go inside the forward 50. Uze in from the side, no mark. Falls down to Walsh, he's pushed off it. Pack form, centre-half forward for the Bombers. The umpire says, let's chuck it up. Simmons on the bottom of the pack. Centre-half forward for the Dons. Essendon by 1.
Bang.
Oh. Team Wallace throwing hands.
Yeah. Green sandwiched in between he and Damien Hardwick. Leon Shelley dumped in a tackle by Blumfield. The ball comes clear. McCurry trying to get boots the ball, feeds the hand pass away. Here's Blumfield once more. In fact, it's Caracella in the right forward pocket, steadies and puts it through from up against the boundary.
We used to call Blake Caracella the skunk because no one ever played on him. That's what it looked like. He was always by himself. We always thought he had a bit of an odour coming out his backside.
But that's the example that I was talking about earlier. An inside forward 50 stoppage for Essendon, and it's our forwards against their backs around that. And usually your forward is more talented than most defenders. McCurry's involved there, Caracella's involved there, Hurd's involved there. All just super talented players.
And I think you mentioned before, Rama, as a midfielder, if we're in the forward 50, was frowned upon. You'd have Lloydie telling you to get out, you'd have Hurdy telling you to get out, and you couldn't really backchat because they were earning more money than you, so it was their right to.
Essendon by 7. Jeff White wins the tap, but Blumfield off the wing. First touch, long kick to Lloyd. Can't complete the mark. Hurd tackled without it, no free kick. Essendon fans wanted one. Nicholson off halfback. Hand pass to Walsh. Over the top to Leon Shelley as he goes bouncing down the southern wing. Unkind bounce. Hurried kick off the boot down to half forward. Straight to Solomon. Picks it off for Essendon and bangs it back down the wing to Jason Johnson.
Jason Johnson plays on. Centre wing, southern side. Sends it long. Mercury flies. Spoiled away from him. Ricochets a good 30 metres away from him. Trying to run back onto it is Johnson once more. On the left boot, awkwardly kicks inside the 50. Under pressure is Collins. Tackled, lost it, holding the ball. No advantage as Lucas takes it and snaps it through.
He's still dirty about that, Scotty Lucas. He unfortunately didn't kick a goal in this grand. He kicked 4 behinds in this game. It's a super tackle by Longy. There, to just inside, they're just worth their weight in goal. But Scotty was able to capitalise if it was advantage. So the following year in our losing grand final, I think he kicks 4.
And I think he hit the post on the stroke at half time, and it would have put Essendon 5 goals up. And
that's a story for another day, though. We're celebrating here, not commiserating.
So Michael Long out to the right, kicking from about 45 metres out. The 93 Norm Smith medalist. He misses to the right-hand side.
And we were such an accurate kicking team through the year. I think in this quarter, we've kicked 3 goals 4. I think we ended up kicking 4 goals 8 to start this game. So we probably left the door slightly ajar for Melbourne, probably for a little bit longer than we should have.
The other thing fresh in, that's not a great kick in. Out on the full it goes. So Melbourne get the footy straight back up. And remembering back in 2000, the thing fresh in people's mind was the 98 grand final, where North Melbourne were obviously hot favourites against Adelaide, who had made it through to the grand final for the second year in a row from the latter part of the 8 and kicked themselves out of it early. Hurd goes short to Mercury, snaps into oncoming traffic. Collins spoils, whacked away into the path to Rigoni. Hand passed away wide on the Brownlow medalist. Back to Rigoni. There's a whistle on the play. And a free kick coming back. It's going to go Melbourne's way at half back. Guy Rigoni gets set to take the kick. So that grand final in 98, North went 6-15, led Adelaide 4-3 at half time. 21 scoring shots to 7, and obviously we know what happened next. It's Rigoni with the long kick down the members' wing. In from the side, nice mark. Justin Blumfield, defensive side of the wing for Essendon.
Bombers leading by 8 points as he kicks to the lead of Hurd, who marks on his chest. Between wing and half forward on the members' side. Kicks to Ramanaskas, running into space, sliding in, takes the mark.
Don't butcher this, Rama.
Heart pumping Rama.
Nah, never.
Left half forward, kicks to Lloyd up with one arm, couldn't complete the mark.
That was terrible by Lloydie.
Jeff White gathers up against the behind post. The hand pass to Alistair Nicholson. Of course, now with the ACA working in cricket rather than AFL. Got the hand pass away to Phoebe. Kicks towards the wing. Coming out Schwartz. Lost his footing. Wallace over the top. Locks the footy in. An umpire eventually will come in and ball it up. Members wing. Essendon leading by 8 points.
8-point margin. Essendon 3-4, Melbourne 2-2. Schwartz doing the ruck work up on the wing. Wins it down. Now becomes the tackler on Hurd. The ball spits out the back. Now Uze and Heffernan over it. The umpire calls for it.
And this is the part we did notice. Well, you look at that previous tackle, Woden and Heffernan. Heffernan's really drove Woden into the ground. None of his teammates come over and help. You look there, Schwartz has driven Hurdy into the ground. Jason Johnson straight over there to help.
Schwartz whacks it forward. Loose footy. Solomon scoops it up off half-back. Essendon back with it. Through the middle with Blumfield. They're queuing up. Got Ramanaskas alongside him. Has a bounce. Through centre half forward. Now a second. Under pressure. Kicks goalward but misses.
What are you doing there, Rama? What did you do a second bounce for?
I don't know.
You just settled, just slotted it from 40.
I don't know.
But can't you kick over 30 metres?
Well, I thought I was logging from 93 there. I was going to put the balk in and make it really special.
You got to remember, Longy had talent, mate.
Yeah, I know. That's correct. Correct.
Dons by 9.
So Stephen Phoebe to bring the Demons back into play. Of course, Matthew Phoebe, his brother, missed the grand final. Stephen Tingay as well. The kick in straight down the middle. Not a great one. Spoiled away by the Bombers. And here's Lucas onto it. 45 metres out. Gathers, fires on goal, and he misses to the right-hand side. So the Bombers peppering the goals.
I didn't realise how many shots we missed, and easy shots too.
Yeah.
Well, the Mercs in the pocket would have kicked that 9 out of 10 times. Ramo, I don't know what you were doing, and Scotty Lucas has us for breakfast.
10-point advantage, 3-6 to 2-2.
So in this moment, are you panicked that you're missing, or are you thinking we're dominating them in every area? This is a good thing?
Oh, well, you don't realise. I think when you're out, you don't realise. you realise you're missing the opportunity, but you're quite comfortable because the ball's in your hand. It's not like they're going down the other end of the ground and scoring against us. So you're quite comfortable at the moment as a team.
So White gets it from the kick out at half-back. Hand pass away to Woden as he kicks to centre-half forward for Melbourne. Hardwick reads it best. Got rid of Brad Green. Just has to pick up the footy in the other direction. Farmer on it for Melbourne. Hand pass away to Leon Chelley. Gives it by hand to Green. Snaps across the body. Goalwood right to the goal square. Schwartz hands on it. Couldn't complete the mark, and through it goes for a rush behind. And now Wallace and David Schwartz lock up again in a tangle. 9-point lead for the Bombers.
Yeah, he's probably not someone you want to tangle with too often, Dean Wallace. He would generally win those scuffles. And you see here, Schwartz is having to go off the ground with a bit of blood coming out of the nose. So Wally was that play. He was hard, he was tough, he was physical, and he looked after you. He just looked after all his teammates on the ground, and that's why he was so loved by all of his teammates. You could just rely on him. You just knew he was always going to be there for you.
That back line had a few hard nuts in it. So obviously Hardwick, Wellman, Mark Johnson,
Solomon.
Pound for pound, who wins if you got to stack them all up?
Oh, I'm saying Solomon.
Yeah,
Solomon was made of granite.
Yeah.
You couldn't move him. And he's a bit of a mad one. But there was a lot of tough boys back then. And I'm not too sure if you mentioned Hardwick. You know, the old white line fever. If anyone's got it, he's got it. It banked talent during the day when he was playing. And then when he crossed the white line, he was a psychopath.
So would you see that at training as much as you'd see it on game day?
Yeah, absolutely.
You used to see it a bit when we used to play in the pre-season. The young kids used to come in, cock a hoop, and Gary Moorcroft and think, Ramo, we got you once, mate. The young kids come in, and Harvick was pretty quick to put them in their place when we had our first intra-club.
Yeah. Some Wednesday training sessions used to get reasonably physical, and Sheeds used to love that as a coach because he knew already.
Melbourne with the kick inside, 50. Fletcher tackled by Green.
See, look at that there. So Gerd comes over the top, and there's four Essendon blokes dragging him away, and that was the beauty of this team, is that we really looked after and cared for each other.
Brent Gergic, number 4. Let's be honest, a player that didn't stick in my memory too much from the grand final. Wellman out of defence, finds Solomon at left half back.
I'm told he's still involved in footy coaching down in Geelong, so I think he went and played for Geelong after his stint at Melbourne.
Solomon kicks to half forward, where almost the mark is claimed by Carousella. He's back on the footy though. Hand pass missed Lucas. Hand pass from Mercedes out to Long. Beautiful vision. Saul McCurry, nice sidestep. Run down, good chase. Getting to the last moment was Lloyd. Running onto it, Lloyd snaps off the outside of the boot and puts it through. Matthew Lloyd with his first goal in the 2000 grand final. And the Bombers skip clear, 4-6-30 to Melbourne 2-3-15.
So 2 great handballs there. The first one is Joey here to get us out of the mess of the contest. Then Longy to put Mercury into space. Maybe should have been holding the ball, but on that angle he gets the handball away. But that's it's just that unselfishness of Longy to get that ball going forward for us.
There's always a lot of corporates, obviously, there on grand final day, and they sort of swing, I think, the neutral interest. Did you feel the crowd was more with than against you that day?
I think everyone, if you weren't an Essendon supporter, wanted Melbourne to win because we seem, cock a hoop and a bit too far in front of ourselves. But,
Joe Mercedes alongside Adam Ramanauskas as Neitz wins the footy in the pocket, shoots a hand pass over to Brad Green, and the teenager pops it through. So Melbourne get one back. They've been thoroughly outplayed and yet trailed by just 9 points. 4-6 to 3-3. Essendon by 9.
Just that centre clearance. Hardwick goes up for the big hanger and obviously leaves his opponent at ground level. So Brad Green, he had a terrific final series. Had a really important game in that first qualifying final against Carlton, where I think it's him and Cam Bruce in that last quarter kicked a couple of goals. So obviously a really good player for the Ds for a long time. He was Brad Green.
So closing in on quarter time. Essendon hold a 9-point advantage. Barnes and White in the middle. Hurd gets the clearance to the Bombers. Hand pass backwards. Bluntfield kicks to the members' wing. Up Ramanaskas trying to flick it to the advantage of Hurd. Did well. Was able to get it around Uze. The kick to Barnes at half forward. Feeds the hand pass back to Ramanaskas. He kicks inside the 50. Out comes Lloyd on the lead. Spoiled away from him. Flying shot on goal. Misses to the left-hand side. Probably had a little bit more time than what he thought, Jason Johnson, as he misses to the left. It's a 10-point ball game. 4-7, plays 3-3.
Neil Danaher in the box as a coach of Melbourne. 39 years of age back then. Of course, there's a couple of things which obviously look different about the ground and the game, obviously 20 years on, but back then they had one coach's box on the southern side of the ground, where Kevin Sheedy's sitting in the other coach's box on the members' side of the ground, which Neil Danaher is in. Has had a lot of famous moments and shots in that box over the years as Melbourne work it up beyond halfway. Powell kicks down to Schwartz, one-on-one with Wallace. No Mark Wallace back to his feet. Soccer's looking for Johnson. Farmer sockers into his own advantage. Collision top of the goal square. Boy, that was tough. Hardwick in one direction and Powell in the other, and the umpire calls for a ball up. And now a free kick, an undisciplined free given away as Hardwick knocked over and gets it in front of the behind post.
Kicks out of defence and finds Long, who marks in the left back pocket. A couple of bounces as he runs the broadcast side. Hand pass inboard. Bluntfield now on the AFL logo on the members' side. Kicks to half forward. Back with the flight. Mercury spoiled away from him. Johnson couldn't pick it up cleanly. Under pressure, was taken high. It's obviously a phenomenal season for Matthew Lloyd. Kicked 109 goals. Can you remember the end of the season when he was nudging towards that 100?
Oh, okay. I think he got his 100th in the qualifying against North Melbourne. Well, it wasn't hard because he kicked about 40 goals that day, but he got it that day, and I think the pressure of him trying to get the 100 goals and get it over and done with before grand final day was a blessing in disguise. But talk about a champion player. He was unbelievable, and one of the last full forwards to kick 100, and probably one of the last ones to ever kick 100 the way footy's going.
So kicked 87 goals the year before and 109.60 in 2000.
Look, Lloydie's only young here. I think he's only 22. I think so. He's still very young in his football career, but he was already such a superstar player. His hands are always so good.
Leon Shelley kicks into open space between wing and half forward for Melbourne. Walsh, the first one there. Hand pass doesn't make it out of bounds. Fletcher keeps it alive for Essendon. Hands it inside to Solomon. A long kick beyond the wing. Blumfield hands to it. Slips out the back to Travis Johnston. Defensive side of the southern wing for Melbourne. Back to centre half forward. Wallace over the top. Takes the mark ahead of David Neitz. And Essendon come up with it again at centre half back. No way through for the Demons.
10-point lead the Bombers' way. Wallace long to half forward. Big fly, almost claimed Blumfield. Spoiled off hands, charging onto it. Lucas couldn't pick it up cleanly. Tackle, shrugged the tackle. Gets the hand pass away. Firing shot on goal. Joe Mercedes misses to the left-hand side. What happened?
What were you thinking there?
I think a big gust of wind just come up that time. I dropped the ball on my foot.
Lloydie was also standing in the goal square.
I just saw that, mate. I'd never seen that before. He's already kicked 100 goals for years. Give me a couple.
So now 4-8 Essendon. They were 3-3 when Carousel kicked the Dons third. Waning moments here of the opening quarter. Melbourne out of the defensive 50. Woden to Johnston. Johnston misses his target. Wanted Leon Shelley over his head. Powell mops it up. Gives it back to Leon Shelley. Hand pass away to Walsh. Over to Rigoni. Back to Walsh. Runs through centre half forward. Hands it inside. Wanted Powell. Missed him. Ramanaskas cuts it off. Hand pass to Mark Johnson, who kicks across the half-back line.
It's the skunk again.
Bouncing ball for Carousella, now known as the skunk on ABC Grandstand. The kick inside the 50 to Hurd as the siren sounds for quarter time.
You look at that first quarter, Melbourne have had real trouble with Blumfield, Carousella, Mercury and Long. And they're our four forwards that started as sort of permanent forwards in that game. So they're all coming up the ground. Melbourne are sitting back. They're sitting back and waiting, and you'll see as the game progresses, that just doesn't stop. Those four guys obviously have really, really good games as well.
So quarter time, Essendon 4-8-32 to Melbourne, 3-3-21 for the Bombers. 2 goals for Carousella individuals to Hurd and Lloyd. Meanwhile, for Melbourne, 2 goals to Powell and Brad Green, the other goal scorer for them.
I don't know if you heard the voice, "Get out of the way." That was Neil Danaher talking to the cameraman who was standing right in his path as he walked down the stairs at the MCG for the quarter-time huddle. Grandstand AFL, this is the recall of the 2000 Grand Final. Essendon 4-8-32, Melbourne 3-3-21. Second quarter action coming up next. This is Grandstand AFL.
Grandstand AFL.
On ABC Radio and Grandstand Digital.
Grandstand AFL, a special edition as we recall the 2000 Grand Final with 2 of the day's participants, Premiership players Adam Rabanaskas and Joe Mercedes. Can you remember the words of Kevin Sheedy at quarter time, or what the message was when you first got together?
The same message was pretty consistent throughout the year. You just work hard, push across to get to every contest, and then as soon as you get the contest, just spread, we will win the ball. And as you'll see that in the first quarter, more in the second, that's why you'll see a lot of the Essendon players out by themselves. When there's a contest, if it's a 2-on-2 contest, we're pretty confident we'll win the ball, and we sort of just run out into a bit of space.
I cannot remember one thing that he said. So that's the truth. It's now a lot of this stuff now you do remember when you obviously see it on the screen, but the speeches and the like. I remember the talks during the week.
Yep.
But I struggled to remember back to game day and what was said. My recall of those speeches aren't much at all, and I think the reason because the game wasn't close at really any stage. So I don't think there was any real significant moment in Sheeds' speech where he was worried. I think it was more about reinforcing the fundamentals, which we'd been so good at throughout the whole year.
Essendon by 11 points, 4-8 over Melbourne 3-3. Second quarter action, the recall of the 2000 Grand Final as Barnes wins the tap. Mercedes gets the centre clearance out towards the southern wing, overrunning at Ward. Mercury back on the footy for the Dons. Hand pass into the path of Rabanaskas. Tries to spin out of the Leon Celli tackle, lost it. Ward gives it over to Collins, who goes on a bit of a run. Hand pass away to Leon Celli on the southern wing, and he kicks Melbourne down to half forward, but straight to Fletcher. Spills a mark he should have taken. Melbourne back with it. Rigoni, high ball inside the forward 50. Schwartz and Wallace wins again. Punches it over the fence and a boundary throw in forward pocket for the D's.
Crowd of 96,249 in attendance for the 2000 Grand Final. Thrown in, left forward pocket. Schwartz tries to tap it down for Melbourne and then has a clear area as he tries to gain territory. Farmer in the right forward pocket, kicks it out on the full.
And that was such an important matchup, the Farmer and Mark Johnson matchup. Mark in the qualifying final against North Melbourne had popped his shoulder out. So, you know, he was really struggling. He was really, really struggling in terms of being able to get up from week to week from then on. But the way he shut down Jeff Farmer in this game was unbelievable, really, all things considered.
And Jeff Farmer kicked 76 goals in the season. You remember he kicked 8 in the prelim against North Melbourne, which Melbourne won by 50 points. He was a small forward ahead of his time.
Here's Powell on the logo of his southern wing, kicks down to half forward. Gergic the target. Falls to ground with the footy. Hand pass ends up straight with Solomon, though, to Jason Johnson. Essendon back with it. Mercury long kick to a one-on-one. Lucas opposed to Collins. Out of bounds it goes, and a throw-in on the southern wing. It's a high-scoring prelim, too. The Melbourne North game, I think, was the Friday night the week before. Both teams kicking over 100 points, and Melbourne still won the game by 50. The boundary throw in Mercedes on the bottom of the pack, along with Ward, and a ball up southern wing.
And you just saw the interchange bench there. There's the old school interchange where he didn't come on until someone sort of was playing badly or was injured. So 4 of those blokes on the bench hadn't seen a minute yet.
I was watching a bit of the game during the week, and it's interesting to note the commentators. I think early, one of the Melbourne players comes off, and Malcolm Blight says, "Oh, is he injured?" As if, like, why else would he be off the ground otherwise? Whereas, obviously, in today's footy, that's commonplace. As Melbourne get a little bit more territory as their kick bounces out of play off the boot of Ward, so a throw-in still on the southern wing. Still Essendon by 11. Darren Buick, one of those starting on the bench. about to become a two-time premiership player. He'd been one of the 7 to feature back in 93. So from the boundary throw-in, Rigoni head over the footy, pack forms again, and another ball up. Essendon by 11, early stages of the second quarter.
And it's just the little things like Chris Heffernan again on the bottom of the pack, and that allowed Joe Mercedes, Jason Johnson, the other two midfielders, really, to go and get the ball.
Alessio and Nicholson in the ruck. Nicholson won it down. Powell onto it for Melbourne. Whistle as he got his kick away. Advantage is paid. The kick to half forward. Neats out-manoeuvred. And a good mark in the end taken by Sean Wellman. Feeds the hand pass back to Fletcher. The hand pass to Mark Johnson, who kicks to the outer wing. Bluntfield takes the mark. Justin Bluntfield, who kicked 27 goals in 2000, kicks to Hurd, who marks on his chest. The push off on Phoebe. And marks right of centre.
And again, this is the beauty of James Hurd. He's comfortably beating Alistair Nicholson in the first quarter. So then they go and put a smaller Matthew Phoebe on him. Hurd, he takes him to the goal square.
James Hurd out to the right from right on 50. Steers it straight through the middle. The first goal of the second quarter as the Bombers extend their lead with Hurd's second. They're 5-8-38 to Melbourne, 3-3-21.
And we spoke about that in the first quarter, Joe, that those forwards that we had were all taller, so they could all drift to any part of that forward 50. There was times when Merckx was out of the goal square because he just had the better matchup.
And you find too that our forward line was so potent that every time that's a midfielder, you look up, you just get the ball as quick as you can, because 7, 8 out of 10, they're going to win the contest and get a shot on goal.
So Hurdy kicked 109 goals that season. Scotty Lucas with 57. But then you look at Carousel at 35, Hurd 36, Mercury 32.
Free kick here from Melbourne. Jeff Farmer's going to get it in the forward pocket at his jumper tugs as the kick came in. And so the first chance for the Wiz to put one through on grand final day.
And as you said, Corbett, he was a star. He was an absolute star of the competition. Jeff Farmer, before his time, the way he played, but the way he could mark as a small forward. I think that's where the small forward position shifted. It wasn't just necessarily ground level, it was in the air as well.
So there's about 3 guys standing to mark as Farmer moves in and puts it through on the drop punt from 15 out. Closes the gap, Melbourne within 11. First 5 minutes of this second quarter, Essendon 5-8, Melbourne 4-3.
And you'll find too, remember, to this day, it wasn't just Mark Johnson that was terrorising Farmer.
Yeah.
You got Harper at the front there, then you had Jason Johnson coming down, Solly, Wally. Every time they went near him, they give him a little bump or just have a little quiet word in his ear, and he just didn't look interested that day, did he?
No. And it was weird. Joe's right. He didn't look himself that day, Jeff Farmer. He barely touched the ball in the first quarter, so it was a great sign for Mark Johnson that he was already on top of him. But you look here, he's kicked the goal. There's no excitement about him, really.
Yeah, whether he's nervous or from Tamble Corby, is that how you pronounce it in Western Australia?
Yep.
And, first Indigenous player to kick over 70 goals in an AFL season. He would go on to become the first Indigenous player to kick over 400 goals and, of course, finished his career at Fremantle. But he was one of the small forwards who could leap, jump, kick on the run, do everything. As the kick in to attack for the Bombers is marked by Alistair Nicholson on the last line for Melbourne. He chips it across the face of goal, and Guy Rigoni has it. Straight down the middle out of defence, kicks to Jeff White with the big padding on the legs. Looks out to the city side of the ground, kicks to the lead of Uze. Sliding in on his knees, he takes the mark. Uze onto the left, the trademark glove, not a good kick, turns it straight over, and the mark is taken by Wallace for the Bombers.
So Wallace out to Hurd, who's got it again on the logo of the members' wing, heads to half forward. Alessio spills the mark as he falls to ground. Still alive for the Dons. Lloyd onto the loose footy. Hand pass away to Lucas, shoots on the run, but misses out to the left.
So Scotty's he's missed 3 easy ones. We're not even halfway through the second quarter, and he gobbles them up. He would usually gobble them. Such an accurate kick, and he puts so much work during the week into his goal kicking.
Oh, that's a wild kick off the boot from Walsh. One bounce and out of bounds in front of Phoebe. So it wasn't touched on the way through, and Hurd will bring it back into play for Essendon. 60 out from their attacking goal. Dons to the city end in his second term. Up by 2 goals at this stage. Just a centering ball to the hot spot. They come from all directions. White had hands on it. Spills down to Lucas. Chucks it on the boot and he misses.
If he had a right foot then, you reckon he would have kicked it?
Well, what about a right-hand handball?
That was only an impossible kick to kick in your left foot. He still managed to get the ball on his boot.
Well, there's gravity meant, or just the biomechanics of it. He shouldn't have been able to stop and get it back on the left boot the way he was able to.
And with 3 blokes right off his clacker too.
Had a clean look on the right boot, didn't take it. So another behind for Lucas, Essendon by 13.
So he's up to about 4 behinds by this stage. Who would you have said was the best kick out of that Essendon forward line?
Out of
Lloydie, Hurdy, Lucas, Mercury, Carousella, Blundfield.
I think it's a contest between Lloyd and Carousella.
Yeah, Carousella was a good kick.
Yeah, he
on
was
the run
deadly accurate. He held he set shot. He held the ball differently. He held it a lot more forward.
Melbourne trying to find a way out of defence as Nicholson's hand pass to Leone turns it over. Leoncelli turns it over. The kick inside the 50 up when Alessio could take the mark. Hurd up against the boundary. That looked over the line. Kick to the goal mouth. Here's a chance for the Bombers. Running onto it. Carousella. He puts it through. Carousella with his second.
And just to see Mercury's hands there, that's pretty quick hands to get the ball at full pace and give a little 1 metre handball off to get Carousella into space.
That was a feature of our game. That just the unselfishness there. Like Hurdy from the boundary line, he'll say he'll centre in it, but he was probably going for goal, knowing Hurdy. But Mercury, just a deft little touch. Carousella running into space. Again, it seems like early in this game that Blake didn't have an opponent. He was just everywhere, and we were surprised that Neil Danaher didn't put somebody directly to break Blake Carousella to try slowing him down. I think that was his. Was that his third?
Yeah, that was his third.
That was his third. We're not even halfway through the second quarter.
I think it's hard. You've got to match up on, Already heard Lucas probably first, and Mercury fourth, Longy fifth, and Carousella gets a 6th best defender.
Essendon out the middle again. Mercury marks it on a half forward, turns, looks inside the forward 50. Alessio comes charging through, goes to the fend off, gives it to Hurd. Sweeping hand pass over to Barnes, chucks it on the boot and to the top of the goal square, but Collins, the former Crow, backing back, marks top of the defensive goal square.
So they've got nowhere to go here because we knew, I don't know if you remember, Ramo, that Melbourne, all they wanted to do in their back 50 was play on again in the corridor.
Yeah.
So all we did was have 3, 4, 6 blokes in that corridor. And if they wanted to kick out wide into the wing, we'd let them.
Leoncelli sweeping hand pass away to Gergic, runs to the attacking edge of the centre square, kicks a long ball goalward, just misses wrong side of the post. On the run from 55 out.
A lot of how Neil Danaher coached was from Sheets.
Yep.
Through playing days, obviously, and that's out of bounds by Hurdy there, but also through assistant coaching. So we knew how to defend it. There's another overhead mark by Blundfield there. It was just so, at the peak of his powers here. He was just so good at that.
That's the Wayne Harms pocket as well, at that corner of the G. So it gets a little fatter on grand final day, that boundary line.
Blundfield from half back, kicks to half forward, Mercedes onto it, hand pass to Ramanaskas. This will make a nice little follow-up as the kick is into the 50 and Lucas takes the mark.
Look, credit where credit's due with Joe. We do have a lot of fun together, but
about time, Ramo.
His hands were as good as I've seen. And I'm not just saying that because he is a teammate, but he would always find his teammate in space. And you needed to be near Joe because if you were near him, he'd feed the ball out to you.
You're just realising that now, mate. It's taken you 20 years to
I just never wanted to tell you.
Joe Mercedes and Adam Ramanaskas with you on our recall of the 2000 Grand Final. Scott Lucas having kicked a handful of behinds. Misses to the left-hand side.
Is that his 5th behind, is it?
4. I reckon that's his 4th. Yeah.
So at this stage, Essendon is 6-11-47 to Melbourne 4-4-28. So you've started to miss a few.
And you just noticed that the ball hardly ever goes in Melbourne's forward 50. It's always an our forward 50. So we were pretty dominant at this stage.
So long ball out to half-back. Hurd gets up and marks. Used Nicholson for a bit of leverage and takes it from the kick-out. Puts it inside the pocket and Alessio backing back.
Yeah, probably the last 5 minutes is where Hurdy started to take the game over. He was good in the first quarter, but Blundfield and Carousella were better. It's probably from this period on now where Hurdy really comes into his own and starts to dominate the game.
Remembering at this stage of his career too, I mean, we know that the finished product now and what a champion he was, but he barely played the year before with the stress fractures in his foot, was never known as to whether he was able to get back to his best again, and then leads a team that's one of the best teams we've ever seen through that season.
Was after 99, his injury was so severe, as you said, they didn't know he was going to play again, and it was just a credit to him to get through the pre-season, and every week he got through a pre-season, we're thinking, shit, hope it doesn't happen again, because obviously he's a pretty important player to our setup, but as a leader, said the right things, and he was more a leader where he just followed everything he did, because he didn't do too many things wrong.
Was he much of a talker?
Oh, he was. He spoke. He was a terrific talker, but as Joe said, he led by actions on the field, and he led by the way he trained. Like, we had other guys that were great talkers. Joey was a great talker. Dean Wallace was a great talker. Sean Wellman was a great talker. Longy was a great talker.
Lesko's kick missed, so it's 20 points, Essendon's lead.
Phoebe Inderagoni back to Phoebe, kicks to the outer wing where Barnes takes the mark. Essendon with the 2-on-1. Barnes short to half forward. Carousella takes the mark. Turns onto his right-hand side. Kicks towards Solomon. Couldn't complete the mark. Here's still a chance for the Bombers. Charging his way through was Jason Johnson. Kicks to the goal mouth. Lucas brings it down. Mercury at the top of the goal square. Snaps it through.
You saw the raging bull come through, get a front and square there, and talking about granite bodies, he was like a bit of rock, but just came through front and square and managed to get the ball forward, which created the goal for us.
That raging bull that Joey's talking about is Jason Johnson. He just head down, just shrugs the shoulders. He's one of the all-time great teammates, Jason. He became an absolute superstar of Essendon in the years preceding this grand final, but he had his own problems with his toe early in his career as well, and missed 99. But I know for Joey and Jason worked brilliantly together as a midfield combination.
So all of a sudden it's starting to get out a bit. 7-12 to 4-4. Essendon with a healthy lead here of 26 points midway through the second. Melbourne out the middle though through the Brownlow medalist. Way wide into centre half forward, and Neitz takes the mark. Shook his direct opponent. And now Neitz will shoot from 45 out. True centre half forward. David Neitz only 25 at this time of his career as well.
Yeah.
He looked about the same age, didn't he, for about the last 10 years, I think, of his career.
I played Teal Cup with Neitz, and he looked the same in under 17s.
15 years in. Here he is, centre half forward, shoots goalward, nice kick. One back for Melbourne. Pumps a fist, tries to get his team going. 20 points down now, midway through the second, 7-12 to 5-4.
And Neitz was a really good matchup for Fletch, because Fletch liked the players that were fast on the lead, would jump at the ball, because Fletch could go with them. Fletch was an unbelievable athlete. Fletch, he never liked the guys that wanted to wrestle with him too much and get into that type of contest. But if it became a running contest and a jumping contest, Fletch would win those 9 times out of 10.
So back to a 20-point margin the Bombers' way, midway through the second quarter. White wins down the tap. Leoncelli can't get a clearing kick. And then Mercedes. Melbourne Hacker kick to half forward, charging out. Neitz couldn't gather. Shove from Fletcher as he tried to get his hand pass away. Leoncelli tackled by Mercedes, going no further.
That's a rarity there, Joe Mercedes laying a tackle.
I was waiting for that, Ramo. It's a bit hard to tackle when you've got the ball in your hand, mate.
Just on that, I think that for the day, Essendon had so many more disposals and won the tackle count by 20 or something. Ridiculous. Which probably says a bit about Melbourne that day, and they were beaten pretty early on as White gets a high kick out to half forward. Wellman takes the mark. Half back for Essendon. Goes short to Hurd. Reaches him on the bounce, just inside the southern boundary line. Looks inboard, hits up Wallace. Essendon with the footy at half back, up by 20. Latter stages of this second quarter, a recall of the 2000 grand final to Mark Johnson. Hand pass to Fletcher, long kick inside 50. Lloyd leads his opponent underneath the footy, doubles back, and the ball beats them all out of bounds in the forward pocket.
So for such a dominant team, Dustin Fletcher wins the best and fairest in a premiership year as the fullback of the team. But that passage of play there where Fletcher's coming back through the middle of the ground is something that we wanted often. Fletcher's comfortably the longest kick in the team, but probably the best kick in the team also.
Alessio flicked it over the back for the Bombers, but Powell's onto it for Melbourne. Hand pass to Travis Johnston through the middle of the ground. He takes a bounce, kicks to half forward, eats out on the lead, marks. Still a good 2 kicks out from goal. Farmer's on the move. He kicks to the pocket. Up on one-on-one with Mark Johnson. The 2 tangle. The ball clears and goes out of play. A wry smile on the face of the Wizard. Eight minutes 45 to go in the second quarter. Essendon leading by 20 points. Melbourne deep in the right forward pocket. Toss back into play. Neats in the ruck, tries to swat it towards the boundary line. Rolls out of play in front of Mercedes for a throw-in up against the right behind post.
Of course, visually, the umpires in white with the red and blue stripe across the shirt. The old Ponsford stand and the old Olympic stand at the MCG. The goalposts aren't as tall as they are, obviously, nowadays. And Ansett Australia signage around the ground as well, so gives you an idea of the time as Essendon worked the footy off half-back. Mercury, hand pass over his shoulder. Leon Chalido runs onto it, half-forward for Melbourne. Just puts it out in front of him as he's almost tackled. Leon Chali hadn't lost it. Now Powell, he's wrapped up too, lost it. Just frantic pressure. The Bombers applying in that back half and a clearing kick out of defence. Alessio chasing after the loose footy and it bounces out of play on the southern wing.
And you can see why Melbourne aren't getting too many easy possessions, because our pressure, which I haven't watched this for a while, is outstanding. The first one misses, the second one misses, the third one will get you. So
the voice of Joe Mercedes alongside Adam Ramanauskas, Matt Clinch and Corbin Middlemass with you for the ABC Grandstand recall of the 2000 Grand Final. Sliding in down low is Jason Johnson. Get a free kick for too high against Leon Cheli. A bit wobbly on his feet.
that'll be 8 weeks now, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
If you think that's 8, there's one coming up which is which might be double digits.
Schwartz coming in late, making the high contact, and Johnson's a bit worse for wear, unable to take his kick. Is that you, Rammer, who took the kick?
Of course.
Of course it was.
Mercury unable to gather. Comes back to Barno with a high up and under. In the pack was Blumfield, brought to ground, back onto it. Blumfield, flying shot on goal, misses. Just scrapes in for a minor score, missing to the right.
When you see someone get injured or has the blood rule, you stand close to him so you get an extra possession.
That's all the shifty players do, really.
He's going to run it off, Jason Johnson. He was very wobbly on his feet. Stays out on the ground. Kick-out's coming back. Mercedes picks it off. Hand pass to Mercury. Away to Barnard. Kicks goalward. It bounces across the face. Behind.
You talk about Jason, unbelievably tough. Like, that was a big hit, and you could see Jason was wobbly on his legs when he got up, but he was one of the toughest players comfortably that I played with.
It's like Trevor Burbick after Mike Tyson knocked him out one side of the ring to the other.
Travis Johnson with the kick in. Mercedes spoils it down. Still a chance for the Bombers on half forward. Hand pass comes back to Wellman, who reloads and kicks inside the 50. Melbourne with the numbers. And having to stand his ground was Anthony Ingerson, who will get the free kick for too high. Right back pocket. Feeds the hand pass to the back to Travis Johnston, who started on the bench for Melbourne. Takes a bounce and then kicks out to the members' side. Russell Robinson takes the mark. Left half back for Melbourne.
Gives it to Rigoni. Has it on the logo of the members' wing. Kicks inside 50. Schwartz over the back. Can't complete the mark. Falls down in front of Walsh, who's taken high. And Peter Walsh will get the kick. Half forward, 45 out. Called to play on. Goes short and retreats back to Rigoni.
So they're still very much in the game here. No, but it's 22 points, but because of, I think, our dominance, it feels like a lot more. And you could start to feel the energy levels and the confidence going out of Melbourne. Like there, Rigoni should have got that ball on quickly. to a free teammate, but he's going to try and back himself in from outside 50 here.
Again, in his 70th game here at 26 years of age, kicks from 55 metres out, across the face, doesn't quite have the trip, or in fact it does, it sails over the boundary line, wrong side of the behind post, so out on the full. Fletch to bring it back into play, Dons by 22.
Moves it quickly, Lloyd's in defence, takes the mark, advances it further to Wallace, who kicks towards Hurd, who's pushed forward. He'll get a free kick against Nicholson. It probably works for Melbourne to slow the passage of play. As the Bombers will take the free kick at left half forward.
Probably not a great matchup, though, is it? Nicholson and Hurd.
Hurd inside the 50, looking for Long. Couldn't take it first time. Little hand pass on. Here's Barnard. He steadies and puts it through. Barnard from 15 metres out was able to charge through and put through the Bombers 8. They're 8-14-62 to Melbourne. 5-4-34.
So we'll be saying Paul Barnard's name a lot over the next little period of time. He swears black and blue that the game completely changed when he came onto the ground. Now we swear black and blue that the game was over when he came onto the ground and it was already in junk time.
Well, that's his first.
Grew up, of course, in Perth and was part of the trade with Paul Salmon, wasn't he?
Yep, so...
Paul Salmon went to Hawthorn. He went to Essendon.
Darren Jarman went to Adelaide, I think, and Sean Wellman went to Essendon. So it was a three-way trade there.
Yep. So margin out to 28 points. It's as large as it's been. In the middle, Powell, hand pass away to Rigoni. So Melbourne trying to get a centre break. Wallace up the back edge of the square, knocks it into Heffernan's direction. A pack forms around him. Leon Shelley inserts himself in the middle and will have a ball up. As part of the television broadcast, they tell a nice anecdote at one stage about Paul Barnard's parents. The fact that his mum was too nervous to come over for the game, so she was watching from home back in Bunbury.
More like the Barney was too tight to pay for a flight to come over.
I agree.
Yeah. It's funny how that nice story changes 20 years down the track when we recall this game on Grandstand AFL. Adam Ramanauskas and Joe Mercedes providing the special comments as the ball heads to the outer wing. Barnard out after it for the Bombers again. It's locked in underneath him, a ball up on the southern wing. And there's Brett Allen, who officiated plenty of grand finals. Darren Goldspink and Hayden Kennedy, so an experienced trio in white on grand final day in 2000.
Hard up against the boundary as the bounce takes place. Schwartz is there. Simmons, third man up from Melbourne. Because touch as it goes out of play. What are your memories of the lead in to the grand final week? Were you being harassed for tickets for family and friends?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do remember that part of it. There was a lot of relatives that I never knew I had that were asking.
Simmons was third man up. Comes the way of Blumfield. Centre wing on the outer side. Sends it inside the 50. Bouncing ball. Barnes was there and eluded him. Lloyd runs onto it. Little toe break to the goal mouth. Can he get another boot to it? He can against Nicholson. On the goal line, Matthew Lloyd puts it through for his second. And after a series of behinds in this second quarter, now Essendon are making them count. 9-14-68 to Melbourne 5-4-34.
And that was the beauty, again, of Lloydie. You know, the dominant full forward, obviously, of the year. But he got himself up the ground. He won a lot of possessions up the ground. So there, John Barnes drifts in as the full forward. Lloydie's up the ground higher just to get himself into the game. Now was able to kick probably an opportunistic goal really in the end.
Well, just the unselfishness of Lloydie too.
Yeah.
Superstar full forward and the ruckman comes down, wants the rest, and he pushes him out to centre half forward.
New game high, growing on every score at the moment for the Bombers, out by 34 points. Long centre clearance, and there is Michael Long. Got some separation and takes the mark. Out in front, he's about 20 metres out from goal. He'll kick on a 45-degree angle.
Centre clearances, and again, a beautiful handball by Joey to get Blumfield out in space there. But, you know, those one-touch plays in the middle of the ground to get your teammate into that open space. Not many are going to beat Essendon when they go into a forward line with the stars we had.
So the Northern Super medalist in Essendon's last premiership shanks the kick, lucky to score across the face. Very uncharacteristic. 35 points, Essendon's lead.
Carousella was filthy when he got taken off the ground there. He swears that cost him the Norm Smith medal.
It nearly did.
Buick getting his chance on the field. Kick in for Melbourne. Rigoni battling for it, lost it. Buick could have been taken high. Powell picks it up for Melbourne. Hand pass to Uze on the defensive 50. Floating hand pass looking for Schwartz, who kicks a low worm burner to Neitz, who tries to pick up the bouncing ball. Fletcher over the top of him. He has a problem. Gathers, knocks the hand pass clear. Schwartz couldn't pick it up cleanly at left half forward. Knocks it on. Travis Johnston just gets the hand pass clear. Powell inside the 50, gets to 45. Kick towards the goal, misses to the left-hand side. And a minor score for Melbourne. 69 plays 35.
Fletcher to bring it back into play, so 34 points again the margin. Closing stages here of the second quarter. This is the grand final recall on Grandstand AFL. Corbin Middlemass and Matt Clinch. And premiership players from the day, Adam Ramanauskas and Joe Mercedes here on Grandstand AFL. And ball's out of play on the southern wing, so a boundary throw-in.
Just watching this first half, Melbourne never got into any rhythm within their game, and look, that's obviously credit to us because we didn't allow that, but they never had a passage of play where they were able to take the ball from one end of the ground to the other and deliver and hit targets.
Knocked away by White from the boundary throw-in. Wellman picks it up, bangs it back down the wing. And out of bounds it goes as Adam Uze tried to clean you up on the way through. Rama, you'll get a free kick for that.
Yeah, I'll get a free. He was a little bit upset, I think, Uze. He probably didn't have the first half that he wanted.
So Ramanauskas down to half forward. There was a whistle on the play, advantage applied, hand pass over to Barnard and into the open goal. He bangs it through. He's kicked 2 of the last 3. And Essendon all of a sudden out by 40 points on the stroke of half-time.
So that was the one rule that we had as a team. Get the ball forward as quickly as you possibly can. Let the forwards do the work. And what we were petrified of as a team is really what the Bulldogs did to us in that round 21 game where they flooded back. So for the remainder of our season, for the remainder of those weeks of the year, all we were doing was practicing training session after training session against the flood. So our first rule is get the ball in. If not, here's how we're going to work our way around the flood. Melbourne didn't flood, which we were probably a little bit surprised about, really, in the end.
So the only loss for Essendon that season was round 21 against the Bulldogs. They lost by 11 points at Docklands. Mercedes with the clearance out of the middle of the ground. Simmons there, couldn't take the mark. Schwartz onto it in defence, just hacks it out of defence into the middle of the ground, sliding in down low. A good mark in the end. Taken by Dean Wallace. Hand pass fired out wide to Hardwick. He kicks to half forward. Up goes Alessio. Couldn't complete the mark. And in comes Long and cleans up Troy Simmons. Simmons head over the footy. Long came charging through. We see Ramanauskas and Schwartz in a tangle. Lloyd in there involved as well. And Rama and Joe, this is out of character for Michael Long. What are your memories of what took place?
It was a bit. He was always a ball player. Probably could say he was going for the ball and Simmons' head was just in the way, but it was pretty crude. As we said before, if you look at the lengthy...
we got 4 weeks.
Suspension.
We got 4 weeks in the end for that. But again, if an incident like that, you're probably expecting your teammates to remonstrate a little bit more. Now that wasn't a great incident by Longy, but really, they didn't really come from all angles to go after Longy there, Melbourne, which you probably think they really should have, Joe.
Well, they probably saw you, remember, and they were scared.
That's right. So I agree.
What are you thinking as teammates, though, when you look at that and you're like, look, our guy's probably in the wrong? Are you thinking, boy, it's going to be on here? Like, does it put you in a different frame of mind going forward?
Oh, 100. Well, Ram and I can't speak. Ram and I, we're not the the bluers or the fighters in the side. But, yeah, we always thought, as it happened, I turned around and thought, oh, who's going to come after me? Or something's going to happen. It's going to be a big all-in brawl. You're thinking back to Essendon Collingwood, 1990 sort of stuff. But, nothing really eventuated out of it.
There's a little bit of a push and a shove, but you look, like no one really went after Longy, which I was quite surprised about. And watching it again now, I'm really, really surprised.
If the roles were reversed then, there'd be a few Melbourne blokes asleep by now, I'd reckon. With a couple of blokes would have ran down from the deep in the back line to square up.
It's funny, for a lot of our listeners that may not remember this game as clearly, they'll probably remember that incident with Simmons's neck being supported and a neck brace being taken off on the stretcher, and it was sort of the pivotal moment of the grand final, really.
Yeah. And you never want to see anybody get hurt in a game of football, but it's unfortunate that it does happen, and it does happen that way sometimes. But Longy copped his right whack at the end. He got 4 weeks for it. It would have been a lot more now if that incident had happened in today's football. He's probably looking at 8 to 10 weeks there, Longy.
Plus the grand final loading that they have nowadays as well to avoid those incidents on the last day of the year. We're obviously watching the tape from the 2000 grand final. We saw the footage of Dean Wallace putting his finger back into place as well.
He came down to remonstrate with Schwartz, because Schwartz was probably the only one that was really physical in that contest. He grabbed Schwartz's jumper and he dislocated his finger straight away.
No need to come off the ground or get any assistance with that. He's having just to pull it out and reposition it himself.
Yeah.
He probably tried to stick his finger in Schwartz's eye or something that way.
But psychologically, you think about some of the players in Essendon's backline. If the roles were reversed, the response would be incredibly different.
Incredibly different. Like that would have been an all-in brawl if that had happened to one of that year, 2000, to one of our teammates. That would have been on.
Would have been carnage.
Troy Simmons went on to have a nice career across 3 clubs. Went to Freo and then Richmond. Actually played in the Victorian game, the anniversary game, I think, at the 150th year of the Aussie rules, back with the All-Stars game at the MCG all those years ago.
He had a really good career. Troy Simmons became a really good player at those clubs, as you're talking about.
It was taking a little while to get him off the ground. The box looks pretty crowded back then. Who would have been in there on the day with Sheets?
Oh, you'd have
Mark Harvey,
Shorey,
Robert Shaw, Terry Danaher, Rob Kerr.
I think we only had 3 or 4 assistant coaches. Yeah. I think we had a senior assistant, which helped Sheeds, and then we had a back line, a midfield and a forward. And the rest would have just been statsmen.
Yeah. Sheeds would have somebody sitting next to him that would write his notes.
Yep.
So Sheeds would say to whoever that was, write that down.
Yep.
Because he always wanted to keep his eyes on the game. So then the quarter time would come along, he'd sit there, he'd highlight all. Because I got to sit in the box quite often with Sheeds, unfortunately, at the back end of my career.
Yep.
And he would get him to highlight a lot of stuff.
Did you have that role at times?
No way.
Just sort of, these 40 points the margin, play restarts, and after Melbourne took the free kick, ends up straight in the lap of Dean Wallace. So he's got it again, back edge of the centre square. So there's only seconds remaining in the first half. A 40-point lead for Essendon. 10-15 over Melbourne, 5-5. So long kick to centre half forward. Slips out the back to Schwartz. He's getting booed for some reason as the kick gets back down the southern wing. There's Hurd, slips down in the tackle, gets a hand pass away to Wellman against the boundary line, kicks to half forward, bouncing footy ahead of Long. There's the cheers for Longy. Whistle on the play, and there's a free kick coming back. I think it's going to go to Michael Long, who was dumped after getting rid of the footy. And there's the response as he puts the footy under his arm and points to the 6 at the city end. Doesn't look overly confident. He'll have to kick from just outside 50. Kicks from 55 out in the end. He's got the trip, but it's offline, missing out to the left.
It's probably something that goes unnoticed with Longy. He was captain in '99 when Hurdy broke his foot, and Joe can speak to it more, but he was absolutely sensational that year as a leader.
Oh, yeah, Longy, yeah. As a man of many words, but his actions speak for him. But when he did speak, everyone up and listened. And, yeah, the way he led us in 99 was unbelievable.
So the siren sounds for half-time with Essendon holding a 41-point advantage, 10-16-76 to Melbourne, 5-5-35. And I remember watching the game with a couple of Melbourne supporters, and they felt like not only had the Bombers beaten them up on the scoreboard, but then with that incident with Michael Long, they'd beaten them up in the match. And you forget Melbourne had come from 14th the previous season, and you could feel like, well, unless something drastically changed in the second half, this was going one way.
Yeah, we were pretty comfortable going to the rooms at half-time. As you can see, I think we had about 15 more scoring shots than them at half-time, which is a total domination. So we just, at half-time, and we reset and come out with, as Sheeds used to break it down into quarters, we had 60 minutes of footy before we became a premiership club.
Was it spoken about at half-time, the Michael Long incident, or once it's addressed on the field, that's it?
No.
Yep.
No. I think what was spoken about, and because we were so dominant within the game, was just capitalising. Like I said earlier in that quarter, Melbourne never got into a rhythm. We were in rhythm. Our game was flowing, but we just weren't hitting the scoreboard as we should have. So that was probably where the message had come from. But you watch that half of football, there's not much more that Sheeds could really say. We're moving the ball well. We just weren't taking the opportunity on the scoreboard.
So Essendon well out in front at half-time. This is the recall of the 2000 grand final. Essendon by 41 points, 10-16-76 over Melbourne 5-5-35. Second half action coming up, the Essendon coronation as we relive the 2000 grand final here on Grandstand AFL.
Grandstand AFL.
On ABC Radio and Grandstand Digital.
A special edition of Grandstand AFL as we recall the 2000 grand final, some 20 years on. My name's Corbin Middlemass, Matt Clinch alongside me, and a couple of premiership players from the day, Joe Mercedes and Adam Ramanauskas, as we're getting ready for the start of the second half. A lopsided scoreline at the half, Essendon by 41 points, 10-16 leading Melbourne 5-5. Imagine this should be a pretty good moment as a player coming out to start the second half of a grand final up by a heavy margin.
Oh, look, yeah, it's nice to be in this position, but you still know that the work's not completely done. We're well in control of the game, but we needed to make sure that we started this third quarter. Just put a couple of scores on the board to really start driving the nail in.
Anything you remember, Joe, from half-time?
I just see there that Gary Moorcroft's still on the bench, hasn't been on for 1 minute, but pretty much what Ramos said. If we stay in front the next 15, 20 minutes, we can really enjoy the last quarter.
Second half underway. White and Barnes to continue the battle. Jeff White rises high and wins down the tap. Barnes on all fours trying to knock it out. Here's a chance for Leon Shelley for Melbourne. Fires the hand pass forward. Chance for the D through Woden, who kicks him inside the 50. Looking for Neitz, and he takes the mark in front of Fletcher. No. Play on's the call. Jeff Farmer sliding in. He might have been taken high. He was by Jason Johnson. So Melbourne would have felt like at half-time they needed to come out firing in the third quarter. A chance for Jeff Farmer to keep the first goal of the second half. And we spoke about the Wiz. He kicked 76 goals in season 2000. Kicked 8 goals in the prelim final against North Melbourne.
Oh, probably not a free kick either there against Jason Johnson.
Through the head back. Farmer with the mustache goatee combination. As he comes in, about 35 metres out, starts at left, slides it back right, kicks the opening goal of the second half. A much needed one for Melbourne. As the Bombers got out by 41 points at half-time. Essendon 10-16-76 to Melbourne 6-5-41.
Mentioned earlier about the Wiz being ahead of his time. That was popularised some 10 years later or so. The shrug of the shoulder and duck into the free kick. Second for Farmer, having kicked Melbourne's first goal of that second term. 35 points the margin. First minute of the third quarter. A grand final recall from 2000. And the ball up again alongside the centre circle. We're used to putting the plural on that nowadays. Obviously just the one circle in the middle of the ground.
Just looking at the follow-up from Farmer's goal. Mark Johnson just straight back into his face.
Masidi gets the centre clearance, bouncing out in front of Hurd. Unkind bounce. Ramanaskas runs onto it. Dragged down, ball spills to Lloyd. Kick smothered. Ricochets out the Demons' way, and McDonald was taken high. He'll get the kick in the defensive 50 for Melbourne.
Travis Johnston on the defensive 50. Sends it out to Leoncelli, who marks it right half back around the members' side. The kick is for Ward, who's running forward, trying to get past Blumfield. Kicks inside the 50. Couple of options. Neats almost competed the mark. Mark Johnson charging through. He'll get a free kick. As Farmer carries on with the tackle. Dustin Fletcher, the two in a tangle.
Fletch, he's just all arms and legs.
Jeff's probably thinking, if I can keep him down here, I'm half a chance.
Joe Masidi at left half back, kicks to Hurd. How many of the Bombers players had long sleeve jumpers on this day? What was the appeal of it?
Three.
All the soft ones, I think, mate. All the soft ones.
Hurd, Carousella and Heffernan, I think, were the ones that wore the long sleeves.
Well, Hurd, he never wore short sleeve because he had the skinniest arms going around. He was a bit embarrassed about it, but I'm not too sure about the other two.
Lloyd at left half forward, kicks inside the 50. Solomon hard against the boundary, screws it back. Up, unable to complete the mark was Barnes. Here's still a chance for the Bombers. Hand pass comes out. Barnard works it forward. Hand pass to big Steve Alessio, who's able to dribble it through from the top of the goal square. Might have been Jason Johnson, actually, who fed the hand pass. So Steve Alessio able to put through his first. 11-16-82, the Bombers, to Melbourne 6-5-41.
It was so quick here from Michael Long, you won't see it. Just that tap backwards back to Blumfield. And unselfish as always inside forward 50, but that's just the little things. Again, Longing's before his time in that area of the game. He'd already been doing that for 10 years. And then you see his nephew Cyril Rioli doing it so many years later. That's just where, as a teammate, Longing was just outstanding with how unselfish he was.
Jeff White with the running start, but straight to Masidi. Hand pass away to Jason Johnson. Kicks to half forward. Bouncing footy unkind for Barnard. Sits okay for Ingerson of Melbourne. Hand pass away to Rigoni. He kicks beyond the centre square down to half forward. Or White went up. Player coming in the other direction. Just missed him. Ball spills out towards Fletcher, and Essendon win it back. Sweeping hand pass to James Hurd. He's got two already in the game on the logo of the southern wing. Heads down to half forward. And Mercury takes the mark between wing and half forward.
It's great hands. Mercury, 5'10", 5'11", and never dropped them over his head.
Mercury to Long as his strides pulled down as he takes the mark. Wheels back inside, kicks to centre half forward, and Barnard beats Phoebe hands down. And he'll have a set shot at centre half forward, 45 out.
It was actually a luxury. Barnard started on the bench, but he comes on as another 6'2", 6'3" type of half forward flanker that can mark the ball in the air there in a contested situation, gets it on the ground, and the team was so versatile in that aspect.
And just look at it now with Barnard. Look at him now; looks pretty fit. But if you see him now, I think he might have eaten about 2 or 3 of those footballs,
and got stung by a couple of bees as well.
Is he living in Melbourne or is he?
Yeah, he's in Melbourne.
Yep. Here's Barnard, set shot from 45 out, threads it. It's his third. A game-high lead for Essendon, out by 47 early stages of the third term. It was an unbelievably settled lineup that year for Essendon too. So the same team that won the prelim backs up, plays the grand final. But I was looking through games played that year, and the highest number of games played for someone to miss the grand final, and it was Michael Pryor at 11. So he was the highest to miss. So it wasn't like you have your usual sort of grand final hard luck story where someone gets injured on the eve of the final series and has played 18, 20 games and hasn't made it. And the next on that list, Denham with 9, Jacobs with 9, Henneman with 5. So generally the team was pretty settled.
I think I mentioned before in the conversation that to get to a grand final, win a grand final, you do have to have a bit of luck. And you'll find, as with those stats you just provided, you'll see that we had a very settled side. I reckon most of our premiership side had played 20-plus games for the year.
Joe Mercedes and Adam Romanascus with you on our ABC Grandstand call of the 2000 Grand Final. Hurd at left half forward for the Bombers. Got the hand pass forward to Lloyd, who slipped over as he got the kick inside 50. Long, who's played predominantly forward, tapped it down to the advantage of Heffernan. Screws it back towards the goal mouth. White had to wait. Long came charging at him. White got the tap down. Solomon charging through. Lost it. Hand pass straight to Blumfield. Steadies, kicks the goal. Melbourne under all sorts of pressure there. He couldn't find a way to hold on to the footy. Justin Blumfield cruising through, was able to finish. And Essendon all of a sudden 13-16-94 lead Melbourne 6-5-41.
The player that was desperately unlucky in 2000 was Dean Rioli.
Yep.
He hurt he broke his collarbone early in the season. He got back into that to the game against the Bulldogs, which we lost, and then a collision with Chris Grant, and he broke the collarbone again. But there's no doubt that Dean would have been in this team if he was fit.
So he played 5 for the year. He was also one of the members that missed, that played in the prelim obviously the year before and was part of that settled lineup, and obviously missed the grand final the following year. Long kick to the top of the goal square for the Demons, and Mark Johnson takes a one-hander opposed to Farmer. In the defensive goal square for Essendon. Pokes the kick out to his namesake, Jason. Run down from behind by Farmer. Umpire says play on as Johnson gets up and kicks the ball down the members' wing. Phoebe can't complete the mark. Johnston turns straight into trouble. Drilled in the tackle. Taken to ground by Heffernan, who's got the long sleeves on as well, and a ball up.
I'm not sure how that's not holding the ball.
Run-down tackle from Jeff Farmer. Dropped the footy, got back up, kicked the footy away. Essendon went down the tap. Mercedes can't pick it up as it rolls towards the boundary line and goes out of play in front of the two interchange benches on the members' side.
So maybe just touch a little bit on Johnny Barnes now. Only probably 6'3" at tops, but was probably the best tap ruckman that I played with. He'd just ask you where you wanted it, and he'd pretty much put it within the other half-metre radius that he predicted.
So who would take control, Joe, in the centre square?
Oh, that was my job, mate. So I was the general. I stayed in there. As you had this discussion with the mate the other day, that I think this year I was in for about 95% of the centre bounces for the whole year. So I was in there. I had to make sure the boys were in the right area, make sure we were doing okay, and make sure we kept Barnes on the straight and narrow, because he could lose his way pretty quick. Big Johnny.
Long kick into attack for Melbourne is claimed by David Neitz, who will shoot for a goal about 15 metres out, slightly left.
The thing is with Barnesy, everyone sees him as a bit loose, as a real character, and he was an unbelievable character of the game. But as a footballer, he was one of the smartest footballers. I only played with him for 2 years, like Joey, but so smart, so fit, was so skillful for a ruckman as well, both left and right foot.
David Neitz took over as the Melbourne captain in 2000. 45-degree angle, only 15 metres out. Just squeezed it through. So Melbourne with their second goal of the second half as David Neitz kicks his second. And the margin is pulled back slightly, but Essendon comfortably on top.
What was that like when he came back to the club, Joe Barnes? Obviously started his career there, went away, had success without having the ultimate success at Geelong, and then walks back into the club. But I imagine it would have looked very different than the way that he left it, given the change that had taken place.
Oh, completely. I think Johnny they got him around the club because he's probably too much of a rat bag. Didn't do everything right. Got down in Geelong and played him, I'm pretty sure, it was 4 losing grand finals. Then to do the complete circle, U-turn, 360, come to Essendon and just come at a great time. And as I kept saying before, you got to remember he was a great player that really added to our side, because at this stage we only had Big Cess. Steve Alessio as our ruckman, and he was the old school ruckman, was the big bear, the big solid man. But Johnny Barnes was the new type. When he's athletic, he was fit and could get around the ground as a second ruck rover.
The Prime Minister of the day, John Howard, in the stands. 47 points, Essendon's lead. Boundary throw in here. James Hurd comes up with it, the half-back. He's tackled, dispossessed. A free kick for holding the ball. He's going to go Melbourne's way, so on the back of Neitz kicking one. Got a chance to try and double up here and kick 2 in a row, something they haven't done in the game so far.
That's probably the only bad thing he did all day, wasn't it, James?
Yeah. He did like to think he could dance through contest 30.
Chris Heffernan, push and shove with a couple of the Melbourne lads. Obviously, ended up finishing his career over at Melbourne. Here's Russell Robertson, gets a set shot. Been quiet so far and kicks his first of the day here. Back-to-back goals for Melbourne. They move to 8-5-53. Essendon 13-16-84. So the margin back to 41.
Trying to cut past Russell Robinson. So on a standard day, Joe, if you're having a rest out of the midfield, how often would you take a breather, if ever?
Not long. As of most games this year, I played 100% of the game time. And if I did, it was only because someone had said on Hurdy, if he didn't get a kick for 5-10 minutes, he thought he'd better bring himself into play and just sort of kicked me out of the centre bounce and said, I need to get a kick, so you go forward. It was only 2 or 3 minutes at a time. I couldn't play anywhere else, mate. I was a midfielder only.
So how many kilometres do you think you would have done in an average game?
35, 40. they did it once on me. I think I got about till 14 or 15. And that wasn't much time wasn't spent at a high speed because I wasn't a very fast runner. But yeah, I reckon I clocked up 15 Ks one day.
But if you think around 14 or 15 back then when the game was played largely different, that's the sort of numbers you'd sit comfortably in today's game.
Oh, sit easily, comfortably. But you got to remember too, guys are clocking up 13 or 14 Ks and teams are getting 400, 450 possessions. So the ball's constantly moving. In our case here, we're only getting about 300, 330 possessions in the game. So there's a lot more contest. So, you know, to Joe's credit, if he's still doing 13 Ks, he's actually working pretty hard in this football.
Maybe get the tracker on my dog, though.
There's a free kick off the ball here. It's going Michael Long's way. And his jumper tucked as he was leading for the footy. Walsh just grabbed his shirt. Wasn't a heap in that. Michael Long will have a set shot at half forward.
No, I don't think that one's you think you let that one go in a final? That wasn't a free kick.
I mentioned earlier, Joe, the amount of players that you'd have joining you in that centre bounce area, the amount of guys that would rotate through. Was there a particular set starting lineup that you would have 2 players in particular alongside you? Was Long shoots goalward?
Predominantly it was just me and the ruckman. But we had, as I said, Long, Hurd, Blumfield, Carousella, Heffernan. Sorry, Heffernan was the other.
Jason Johnson.
The stable one, because he was our tagger. But John Howard, Blumfield, Heffernan, Hurd, they were sort of rotated at that third spot. But as I said before, Sheeds was great when he just let us pretty much dictate what we did. If one of us weren't going too well, we put him down the back line of the forward line to get back in the game, or someone else was really influencing the play in the forward line, we bring in the midfield. So we just chopped and changed as we saw fit.
As you heard by the reaction, Michael Long slots the goal. So Essendon answers straight back after 2 in a row for the D's. Brad Green, his day is done. He had a fractured larynx as a result of an earlier incident. So he's tapped out of the game early.
Yeah, we know which incident that was. That was the incident with Dean Wallace. So that was very, very early in the game. Yeah, you feel for Brad Green.
Not the way you want your day to end. 14-16-100 to 8-5-53, 47 points, Essendon's lead.
White and Barnes in the middle of the ground, no decisive tap. Phoebe has gone into the middle of the ground. He can't break clear and we'll do it all once more. So at this stage of his career, James Hurd was more of a forward than a midfielder?
I reckon he was starting to come into the midfield a lot more. Like the 2000 season, he was up around the football a lot more than obviously previously, Joe, when he played more as a sort of a half forward, really, didn't he?
Hurd predominantly was a forward, and then when he started to get a bit better and he really improved as a player, he played everywhere except the back 50. He was just allowed to pretty much do what he wanted, which is fair enough when you've got a bloke of that ilk.
So is he the standout from today in your memory?
Yeah, he's pretty good, mate. You got Mercury alongside him. Michael Long and Gavin Wanganeen I played with Gav back when he won his Brownlow in '93. He was just a super player. But there was a few, mate. We had Lloyd Lucas. We had a lot of great players come through Essendon when I played.
Walsh's long kick inside the 50 for Melbourne, and Russell Robinson up with a textbook Robertson mark, riding on the back of his opponent and marking on his chest. He got a good sit as he was able to charge over the back of Heffernan and hit the ground on his knees.
He put a lot of people in Chris Heffernan's position, didn't he, over his career, Russell Robinson?
Yeah, he was a brilliant mark, Russell Robinson. He was such a dangerous player. Dean Solomon had the job on Robinson for the day and did a really good job on him.
Robertson slightly right of centre. His kick hangs out to the left, and in the end just scrapes in on the left behind post for a minor score. Melbourne trailing by 46 points. And you look at Melbourne's forward line back then with David Neitz and Schwartz, Robinson, Farmer.
Very dangerous forward line. Very dangerous.
David Schwartz, of course, had the back-to-back knee recos, so 95, 96, came back in 97. I think he was over 100 kilos and had to drop a bit of weight to get back to a good playing weight.
So that year, they also used then Brad Green and Cam Bruce in that forward line, so it was a very dangerous forward line.
So Melbourne win the footy back on halfways. Alistair Nicholson kicks the ball inside the forward 50. Robertson again the target, one-on-one with Solomon. One down by Solomon. Rigoni's hand pass. There's a free kick spotted here. Player held without it. Kick going against the Bombers. Dustin Fletcher stands the mark. He's not too happy. Melbourne will get the free kick at half forward. Robertson's got it again. So a little purple patch here. Really sided in the first half, and now having his third set shot in the first half of this third term. From 52 metres out, gets close to the mount on the mark and takes the fingers of Fletcher on the way through. Doesn't register a score as Johnson comes out of the defensive 50 away to Heffernan. Hand pass to Fletcher. Long kick down the wing for the Bombers.
Barnard was able to get rid of his opponent, but did so illegally. And Melbourne will take the free kick. So having a good period as Collins moves it forward to right half forward. Travis Johnston takes the mark. Melbourne just unable to capitalise on the scoreboard. He centres the ball up. Dangerous kick. Jeff White takes the mark in front of Lucas. Edge of the centre square. Half forward for Melbourne. 46 points as Essendon's lead. Neitz is long in the goal square. Schwartz is led. Throws his arms in the air as that lead was ignored. He kicks to space at right half forward, and Neitz coming out, couldn't get there as Wellman takes the mark.
And that was the beauty of the team. You talk about Melbourne having a good period at the moment, but they can't score. We kicked the most points for the year, and we also had the least amount of points kicked against us. So, our defence was just as good, if not better, than our forward line.
Wallace wins the footy back on the wing, kicks down to half forward. Barnard the target. Gets dragged down, loose ball spills to Long, sweeping hand pass over the top to Heffernan in the pocket, doesn't get a kind bounce, and out of bounds it goes. Repeated shots of the Melbourne bench with a few injury concerns. I think Anthony Ingerson gets hurt a little later in the game as well. He's doing the ruck work here as he palms it down, and Melbourne clear the defensive 50 for the time being. Wellman, though, runs onto the footy for the Bombers. Sends the kick down to half forward. Heffernan's got it again. Between wing and half forward, he looks inboard. Not a great kick, straight to Collins. Marks centre half back.
46 points, the Essendon lead midway through the third quarter. The kick into the middle of the ground. A free kick for too high going Melbourne's way. Anthony McDonald taken high. Against Damien Hardwick, no surprise. So how did Dimmer become the coach from the player in which he knew? I feel like this might take a little bit of time.
Oh, well, our nickname for Damien Hardwick was Damien Fatwick, because he used to carry a fair bit of weight. Skin folds weren't great. Used to hate doing warm-ups. Like we do we'd have to touch the ground 10 times. He's always back at the group whinging. What do we have to do this crap? Let's just get into it. So
recovery, hated recovering.
He just loved playing footy, but hated anything to go with it. So he was the most surprising to become a senior coach, because I don't know what he'd say to his players if they started whinging about stuff like that. But very, very strange. But have a look at his record. He's done an unbelievable job.
Schwartz takes a shot towards goal. It was right to the goal line but hit the post. So Melbourne 55 to Essendon 100.
But what he was is when he walked over the white line, you knew exactly what you're going to get from Damien Hardwick every single contest. And that's what he also demanded a lot from his teammates. So I think that started to ring true, obviously, with the Richmond team and the way they've played over previous seasons.
How did it come about? He played in the grand final 4 years later in the premiership team for Port Adelaide.
Yeah.
How did that come about as Carousel is strolling through centre half forward, kicks down to Long, competes with a footy, no mark, and Melbourne can rebound for the time being. Hang on. Lloyd picks up, snaps back across the goal face, out of bounds.
Well, the unfortunate thing with Dimmer leaving and then Blumfield, Heffernan and Carousel, it came down to a salary cap issue with the football club that unfortunately, you know, those great players and great people had to be traded out, and you know, it really took the heart out of our team there from 2001 onwards, where we could have probably continued to compete for a few more years if we had those guys in the team.
So it was a product of this, really, to be such a dominant side, so many great players that it squeezed to try and get them all under the cap.
I don't necessarily think it was a squeeze. I think there was potentially the salary cap didn't go to the level that they were expecting.
Yep.
And that didn't allow them to keep those players. But to lose 4 players, well, and 4 very, very good players was really hard.
So back in those days, Ramo, it wasn't as simple as taking a pay cut to try and keep the nucleus of the group together?
Well, I think a lot of players did do that. And Joe could probably talk to this as well, because I know that there's a part of his career in the early 2000s where he was, you were minutes away from going to Collingwood, weren't you?
Yeah, pretty much. I was just waiting for the paperwork to come through the fax machine, and the fax machine, this is how long ago it was, the fax machine didn't spit it out in time, because back then it was a 2 p.m. deadline. So
wow.
I was signed, sealed, delivered to go to Collingwood.
What year was this?
2001, so a year after this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
How did you feel about that, the possibility of leaving the club?
I'm wrapped now I didn't, because I've become a one-club player. But I didn't think Essendon were giving me what I thought I was worth, and I've been there for so many years and given them some pretty good service. And Collingwood come up with pretty much an offer you couldn't really refuse. But was refused just because the fax machine wouldn't work. So
wow.
So can you remember what it was like for you then to go back to the club and start pre-season when you thought you were going to be leaving?
The good thing was not too many people knew, so I wasn't out there in the media or anything like that, so not too many people knew. But as soon as I hadn't signed with Collingwood, I just knew it was business as normal, and went back and then got stuck into it.
As Moorcroft shoots from a sharp angle on the ground, kicks across the face, one bounce out of play in the opposite pocket. Essendon deep forward, leading by 45 points.
Another player that would have potentially played in this premiership team was Barry Young. So he played in the 99 prelim final, and he was out of contract at the end of 99, wanted more money, couldn't fit him in, unfortunately, so he went to Hawthorn. So Youngie's still a good friend and still sees a lot of us Essendon boys, and he regrets that every day still, that he went to Hawthorn and missed out on the premiership.
Especially because it was Hawthorn as well, as Barnard from 52 metres out kicks to the top of the goal square. Lloyd can't complete the mark. Socked away by Collins. Now a chance for Moorcroft. He's dispossessed. Kirkic tries to hurdle the pack on the ground. Didn't quite pull it off the same way Buddy did on this ground all those years later, and trips over on the way through, and the ball ends up out of play. Throw in forward pocket for the Dons. And the reason he didn't make it over is Karen Moorcroft grabbed his boot. Boundary throw in. Buick slaps it back into congestion. Out to meet it, Carousel. He's wrapped up, and a ball up centre half forward for Essendon.
A funny story about Carousel. We bag him a bit about the skunk, but he's the only man I've ever known that when we have a go and have a beer, he'll actually take the stubby top off a beer, put it in his pocket, and can it, because he's not a very good drinker. He'd come over and be proud. He goes, I've had 5 stubbies, Joe. Look at this. I've had 6 stubbies. And he has actually the bottle tops in his pocket.
Joe Mazzini and Adam Ramanauskas with you for Grandstand's recall of the 2000 Grand Final. Here's Buick off the ruck contest, runs into the open goal and puts it through.
Yeah, that was a really great moment. Well, a lot of us knew that that was probably going to be Boris's last game for Essendon. He'd been such a good player for Essendon for so many years, and to hit the scoreboard in a grand final, you look at the joy on his face there as he kicks that goal, and he was a terrific teammate again, Boris. I know I've said so many guys were terrific teammates, but that's what makes up a premiership team, just the people, and Boris was one of those.
Essendon 15-17, 107 to Melbourne 8-8-56, and a bit of a cult figure of the Bombers as well.
Who, Darren Buick?
Yeah.
Correct, mate. Yeah, he was great.
And
The Red
Gary
Rover.
Moorcroft.
No, he was fantastic, Boris. And as Roman said, you forget how good a player he was. I still remember 96. He had a whole year off, missing back half of 95, the first half of 96, done his knee. First game back was that centenary game against Geelong when we had to wear those awful jumpers and what have you. And he kicked 8 goals in his first game back. So he's just a great player, Boris, and a great fella.
Great centering kick from Moorcroft, and as a result, Lloyd takes the mark in the hot spot, 20 out, just right of centre. He'll go back and have a set shot here on a slight angle. One-on-one with Ingerson.
This is why he was so hard to defend. Lloyd, he could get it on the lead because he was quick and had terrific hands, and he was so strong in those marking contests where he's able to push out a guy that's probably older and bigger than him in Ingerson and take an easy, pretty easy contested mark in the end.
The trademark grass toss up in the air before he takes his set shot. Matthew Lloyd strolls in, pops it through for his third.
On our replay, it looks the wrong side of the post, doesn't it?
Yeah.
16-17, 113 to 8-8-56. So the margin keeps growing. Final 2 minutes of this third term. We obviously know Matthew Lloyd now with his...
Hang on, we might just have to get clarification, but I reckon that was a very young Charlie Pickering in the crowd with an Essendon scarf.
It is, mate, 100%.
Yeah, it is.
Just on Lloydie, we obviously know him now with his media persona. What was he like, as you said, still quite young around the group at that stage as a 22-year-old?
Lloydie comes from a family. He's not like Rammer and I. We're a bit different. We like to get out and have a good time. Lloydie was a great fella, a little bit straighter than us. He doesn't mind me saying that, but just loved his footy, dedicated to his footy. Came with this as one of the top draft picks and come in and had an effect pretty much straight away. And as his career attests to, he was just a champion football player and a champion bloke.
Lloyd at right half forward.
Well, what Lloydie's not given enough credit for was actually how hard he worked on his game. We see the talent, obviously, and how good he was there, but he would work tirelessly on his game. He would be out there 3-4 times a week just kicking bins of balls at goals, and that's why he was such an accurate a kick for goal. He spent so much time on his craft. He was super strong, and he loved footy. He loved footy, and he loved the football club.
So is that something you would do individually after training, or would there be a forward group? Or
he would come on his day off, no worries, and take the bucket of balls out with the property steward and kick for hours at goal.
Did he ever cop any stick about the grass toss or any of his mannerisms?
Oh, I think we tried to bag him for a little bit there, but it's just the water off a duck's back to Lloyd.
He used to love
too fast.
The shorts used to come up quite high sometimes. So we used to remind him of that quite often.
The grass toss one he always copped to us when the move to Docklands in 2000, when the roof was shut and he'd still be tossing the grass up in the air as part of his routine.
The good thing about Lloyd, as I said before, he didn't really get out as often as Adam and I did, but good thing about Lloyd was when he went back to the club Monday, if we had a couple of blank spots on the weekend, he'd be able to tell you pretty quickly what we did. He'd be sitting there watching or getting told what we'd done wrong.
Not so much of a beer drinker in the premiership celebrations?
He's more into the little girly drinks, the vodka cruisers and vodka lemonades and stuff like that.
So approaching three-quarter time, Essendon 113 to Melbourne 56. The D's have it on right half forward as Farmer's kick is smothered and it goes out of play through Sean Wellman.
There's Mark Harvey.
With his stupid haircut.
Terry Danaher as well, and Kevin Sheedy.
Sheeds' right-hand man literally there.
Toss back into play. Schwartz in the ruck as the siren sounds for three-quarter time against Barnes. So the Bombers leading by 57 points, 16-17, 113 to Melbourne, 8-8, 56. So after having led by 41 points at half-time, the Bombers leading by 57 points. And at that stage, you're probably feeling pretty confident, Rammer and Joe.
Yeah, I think we're pretty comfortable with the situation that's unfolding. Yeah, you can see, again, watching the game back, you can see Melbourne's body language. There's just no excitement. There's no drive in their body language. So, yeah, we're pretty comfortable in the position we are now.
We get to three-quarter time huddle, and we pretty know the game's over and done with. So this last quarter was pretty much just to take it all in. I still remember when we won in '93. Bomber Thompson came to us because he was lucky enough to, as a young kid, playing a back-to-back 84-85, and he just said, if you do get a chance to have a look around, grand final day, take it all in, do it. So I do remember his words vividly. So the last quarters, I looked for mum and dad and up in the grandstand and just had a bit of a look around, which probably you shouldn't be doing on grand final day, but we were afforded that opportunity because all the work was done in the first three quarters.
Essendon fans, stick around in the last quarter. We'll look back on what was a dominant season for the Bombers and also chat about what a few of the guys are up to nowadays. It should be obviously one of those reunion years, 20 years on for the Bombers, and given the COVID crisis as to how that's impacted things so far. Essendon and Melbourne, the 2000 Grand Final. This is the recall on Grandstand AFL.
Grandstand AFL.
On ABC Radio and Grandstand Digital.
A special edition of Grandstand AFL. This is the recall of the 2000 Grand Final with Adam Ramanauskas and Joe Mercedes. My name's Corbin Middlemass alongside Matt Clinch to call the action. The Bombers out by 57 points at three-quarter time, having led by 41 at the half and 11 at quarter time. This must be a pretty good feeling. Grand Final day, final quarter coming up. You mentioned at half-time the job wasn't yet done, Rammer. I imagine there'd be some part of you that'd be thinking, as Joe touched on before the break, this is a chance for us just to enjoy this.
Oh, yeah, look, you're probably still not necessarily thinking that way because you've got another quarter of football to go, but something remarkable would have had to have happened for Melbourne to get back in the game. The beauty of it, there was no Melbourne player dominating, so we didn't have to really worry about a Melbourne player that could really turn the game on its head in the last quarter.
Dons by 57 into the final quarter. Jeff White seems to have hurt his hand back in the middle of the ground after winning the hit out. Heffernan, first clean touch, hand pass away to Mercury. Alongside the centre circle, kicks out to half forward. Collins goes the spoil in front of Blumfield. Clever, paddles it out, but straight away Woden of the D's. Loops a hand pass over the top to Johnston on half-back for Melbourne. You were the youngest member of the premiership team, Rammer. Often you hear said, years on, that guys that win premierships at an early age, we didn't appreciate it as much as we thought we would. Did you have an understanding then as to how rare these moments were in footballers' careers?
Probably slightly, I would say, because guys like Joe, Hurdy, Fletch, Mercury had played at a young age, and they said, look, this stuff doesn't come around often, so make sure you really enjoy it as much as you can, but appreciate how special of a moment it is. So, yeah, I think I did appreciate the moment, but again, I was just super excited to be out there.
Did you have much success at an underage level?
Yeah, we'd played in grand finals in the under-18s. We'd lost, unfortunately, on grand final day, and the year before I was fortunate enough to play in the reserves grand final.
Yep, the last
for
one.
Essendon, which was a great experience in itself.
As Neitz shoots goalward, Melbourne in a quick inside 50 here, early stages of the final term, and off hands, it's out of bounds in the opposite pocket. Who did you support growing up?
Richmond.
Which
was a disaster as a kid growing up in the 80s and 90s because they just had no success whatsoever.
You were born just a little bit too late from Richmond's dominant run. Here's Russell Robertson, first touch from the boundary throw-in, kicks it straight up and down to Mercury, who marks in defensive 50.
And you look, that's Mark Mercury taking that mark. He's one of my all-time favourite Essendon players. I don't think he gets enough credit for actually how good he was as a footballer. The year before, he finished second in the Brownlow medal, but he played half forward basically predominantly his whole career, and just a super player.
And the thing about Merck's, not too many people knew, he didn't start playing competitive footy until he was 14. He's from my local club, His mum was old school Italian, thought footy was too rough, so he played tennis up until the year we made the biggest recruiting coup ever at Keilor Park when we got this young Mark McCurry to play his first year of footy under 14s, and he dominated from day dot. And then 4 years after that, he's playing AFL football. So he was a superstar.
So was he a natural sportsman growing up?
He's good at everything, mate. Yeah. Golf. The only thing he can't play is cricket. But yeah, golf, tennis, footy. He's just a natural.
Lloyd deep in attack, just over the boundary line. Out of play. What about you, Joe? Who'd you grow up barracking for?
I was a Mount Essendon supporter. Dad came over from Italy when he was 7 or 8. Grew up in, moved into a place in Nicholson Street, which is the one that runs behind Windy Hill, with the old scoreboard end. Heard a massive massive roar one day. He goes, geez, what's this? So they've seen this Windy Hill packed with people, and they've stuck under the barbed wire fence and gone in, and they were, him and his brother, my uncle Nando, were hooked ever since. So they went to most games and took me to nearly every game at Windy Hill from when I was about 6 or 7, and had Timmy Watson's number on my duffel coat, and ended up playing the flag with him, which was wow, quite unbelievable.
Where were you in 84, 85?
I was at the grand finals, but the dad and uncle took me, so I was there watching them. So yeah, for me to follow Essendon my whole life and then to play there for 15 years was unheard of.
And particularly training at Windy Hill too. Nothing. I mean, the guys today have a great facility, but it's a ground steeped in history to be able to run around and play there.
The best ground to train at, except when the wind blew up, but it was just great. It was one of the old school grounds, and as I said, I do remember training many times, and I'd look over to the far wing because that was the drinkers' wing. Because what my dad and uncle used to do, they used to set up a few cans and put me in the back of the cheer squad with a little stool, and I sit there all day and watch it while they had a few cans up there. So a few of the times I was training, when I was playing, I looked up and I just pictured my old man and my uncle having a beer watching the footy.
Heffernan with a lace-out pass to Long, who came leading out of the goal square, and he marks in the right forward pocket. Involved, of course, in that incident just before half-time with Troy Simmons. Only about 35 metres out, and he misses. So Michael Long kicked 1-4.
Yeah. He had a massive impact on the game, though.
Well, I'm thinking if he had to kick 5 straight, he probably would have won the Norm Smith.
Well, he's probably set up another 3 or 4, exactly. Just what I can remember, just from touches or tap-ons. He'd already won one, so we can't give him a second Norm Smith, can we?
Simmons and Green tapped out of the game already with injury, so Melbourne down to 2 rotations. Not that they were a huge part of the game back then. The long kick out towards halfback. Caracella, bit of pressure on the mark, can't complete it. Johnston knocks it down to White. Paddles it out to Ward of the Demons. They work it off halfback, and Jeff Farmer takes the mark on halfways. Kick smothered by Wellman. Ricochets away to McCurry. Essendon win the footy back. Barnes across the ground to Barnard. Takes the mark, settles from 48 metres out on the run, and he threads it.
I think he should have handballed to you then, Rama, shouldn't he?
Oh, no doubt. No doubt he should have handballed it to me.
You were pleading for it.
He had a... Look, that's his 4th goal. But he did. He had a... as much as we bag him and say his goals were in... He had a massive impact on the game. He came on in that second quarter and got a couple of goals and just stretched that lead out. And here's his 4th goal. It was actually a beautiful kick for a brute of a man, the way he played it at some stages. He was actually quite skillful and a really nice kick of the football.
Known for that toughness, but by the end of his career, his body had broken down, hadn't it?
Yeah, it had.
2003, Paul Barnard eventually finished up with the Dons. Buick gets the centre clearance, kicks out to Lloyd on the lead.
That's the one I continue to talk about with Lloydie. That's a really difficult mark. To mark it in front of your eyes at full pace. He was a one-grab play. You see other forwards in today's football, they would bobble that and spill the mark. Lloydie and Scotty had beautiful hands. They just, once the ball hit their hands, it stuck all the time.
I think what used to get me about him is how he would drop down to his knees like that at full pace and complete the mark. And but he always seemed to bounce straight back up.
That's hours of practice.
Yeah.
That's just hours of practice to do that.
So Lloyd out to the left, kicks from right on 50, and it catches the breeze and flares out to the left, out of bounds on the full. So Lloydie kicked 4 goals in the prelim final win over the Blues by 45 points. He's kicked 3 goals, ends up with 4 goals for the match. So a guy kicked 109. It's not the Jason Dunstall, Tony Lockett sort of numbers, which probably reflects a bit of the team balance.
Yeah, well, I think Scotty kicked 50 odd that year. as well. I think Carousella, McCurry and Hurd all kicked 30s that year.
Well, there's a fair few in the 20s as well.
Yeah.
So we shed the goal scoring around.
So Blumfield puts the kick into the pocket. Collins goes the spoils, still alive. Hurd after it. Pack forms around him. A ball up half forward for Essendon.
So, yeah, what you're saying, I think, if Lloydie wanted to be more selfish, he could have kicked probably 130 or 140 this year because of the sheer weight of numbers of the ball going inside forward 50. But he was an unselfish player, Lloydie. He doesn't get enough credit for that.
And clearly he would have had days out, but the team success at the pointy end was not necessarily his big goal bags.
No, that's right.
From the stoppage by Woden straight to Wellman. Marks high half forward. Turns and sends a high ball towards the top of the goal square for Essendon. Long caught in a tangle in the goal square and it's through for a rush behind. Just on that year, of course, the almost invincibles tag. You go back to round 21 at Docklands. How do you guys reflect on that night?
Oh, probably a game we
weren't prepared for.
We weren't, because that was the first game that Terry Wallace had introduced this flood. We didn't know what it was. We were just used to, getting the ball out of the centre, kicking forward. Lloydie, Lucas, Hurd would kick goals, and then we go back and restart. But we didn't know what to do, and we just kept bombing it in, which just fell right into their hands. And they got beaten us, and we got beaten by a decent kick by Chris Grant towards the end of the game. He kicked that left foot check side or around his body to win in the game. But it wasn't too fast. We had a bit of talk about imagine playing that perfect season, but it'd be worse if he won 24 out of 25 and lost the grand final. So it didn't really faze us too much.
Barnard kicks inside the 50. Here's Moorcroft, 2 marks, turns and kicks the goal. 72 points all of a sudden, the Bombers lead. 18-20, 128 to Melbourne, 8-56 as we replay the 2000 grand final. Matt Clinch, Corbin Middlemass, Adam Romanascus and Joe Mercedes.
So the 4 guys that started on the bench effectively played as forwards, and they've all kicked the goal. So Barnard's kicked 4, Alessio's kicked 1. I know he kicks 1 at some stage.
Yep, kicked 1.
Moorcroft kicks 1, Buick's kicked 1. So you've got 7 goals there out of your bench.
Well, you've got nearly half our score coming off the bench. Kicked 18 goals, they've kicked 7 or 8, aren't they? So at this stage now, I reckon I'm just talking to someone about where we're about to go. Where's the first place we're going to get a free drink card from?
White wins the tap down to Powell. Quick kick to centre half forward, meets the target. Fletcher spoils and follows up. Hand pass away to Wellman for the Bombers. Over to James Hurd as the roar rings around the Melbourne Cricket Ground. From the low goal, the southern wing kicks to centre half forward. Walsh goes the spoil from the back. There's a bit of push and shove on down at the Melbourne forward line. The D's win the footy out on the wing and Schwartz pulls the kick back inboard. And Rigoni takes the mark for Melbourne. There's a few of them queuing up through the middle here. Johnston slipped as he kicked. And Mark Johnson stands in front of Robertson and takes the mark, top of the defensive goal square. So nowadays there's always a function that's organised for the teams on grand final day. Where did you guys go? So what happens? You get in the rooms afterwards. Then I guess what happens? Talk us through the timeline once you get off the ground.
Well, we're in the rooms for hours after the game because these days you see the teams stay out on the ground for so long. But we ran the lap, and then you say hello to the family, and then it'll straight back into the rooms, and you're in the rooms for hours on end, and there's people just everywhere in the room. So it's well after dark by the time you get out of the room, and the rooms you're seeing your family, and had a few beers and had a couple of laughs, and then we're back to we had a function at the
convention centre.
The convention centre, big function there all night, and that was an unbelievable celebration. That just continued to go and go and go, and then I think we had at the old Heat nightclub at Crown Casino, they'd organised an area for us up there, and we continued to party on there.
Russell Robinson with a shot on goal from 48 metres out. He's able to steer it through. So his second of the match, and Melbourne's first of the final quarter to cut the margin back to 66 points.
Just going back to what Ramos said, the best part of this day was, I reckon, the 2 or 3 hours we spent in the rooms with one another, our close family, and we're still in all our kit, and we probably stunk, and we're drinking VB cans, and just all the happiness all the joy we brought to the support staff, to our friends and family, and to celebrate was probably the highlight besides Bad Monday.
The beauty of that is you're sitting in the rooms and you're with your family or friends, and then your teammates sitting over there, and you just look at him and you smile, and the happiness that you see on each other's face. Then you see, one of the players, one of your teammates having a photo with the Premiership Cup together with all their family.
Yep.
And then you have a photo with all the trainers of the Premiership Cup. And they're the little moments that, unfortunately, that the public don't see. And that's the part of it that I do remember after the game. You got your 22 players that play, but the joy of winning a premiership and what it brings to so many other people is you don't realise that.
Did you go back out on the ground later that night? We see teams nowadays go back out and sing the song.
What we did, Brammer's brought this up, I reckon it was about round 7 or 8. We refused to sing our club theme song after every win because we didn't think it's only, we win a home and away game, so be it, but the most important one was. So we hadn't sung it for nearly 20 weeks, and that was another highlight when we actually got to sing it. We made sure everyone was in the circle and we sang it that loud. I reckon the Southern Stand nearly fell over. So that was a massive highlight.
So I remember you guys singing it very shortly after the final siren on the ground.
Yep, we were in the middle of the ground. We all got together, and then Sheeds got us in the coach's room.
Set shot here for Matthew Lloyd. He's got another one, so the margin grows. Essendon well out beyond 70 points here in the final quarter, reliving the game with Adam Ramanaskas and Joe Mercedes.
So Sheeds got us into the coach's room after the game, but it was only the players and the trainers and the coaching staff. So, we sang the song all together, and obviously, the beers were flowing, the champagne was flowing in there, and that was a special couple of minutes as well. Just that we had that moment all together back in the rooms where Sheeds said, "Well done," but it still rings in my ear. The final words he said, Sheeds, when he left us, he said, "Just make sure you look after each other for the next couple of days."
Yep. I remember that being a big part of the season, the thread that you guys wouldn't sing the song, and what a moment it was to obviously finally do so. But whose initiative was that?
If my memory serves me correct, Joey, we had a talk. Kevin Bartlett spoke to us.
Yep.
We had a training session at the MCG, and he spoke to us at the MCG in one of the rooms there, and he suggested it.
Yep.
And I think it just built from there. Like it was, the reward is to win a premiership, and everyone loves singing your theme song. Well, if you win the premiership, you get to sing your theme song again. So I think that's where it sort of started from.
Stephen Powers has taken a hanger over Russell Robertson, so returning some of the serve. Usually Russell Robertson in the other position up top. And Powell will go back and have a chance to kick another. He finishes with 4 on grand final day, Stephen Powell. 3, in fact.
Probably Melbourne's best. Kicked 3 goals, had 21 disposals, second highest possession getter behind Guy Rigoni.
Here's Stephen Powell from 15 out. That is his 3rd. So another one back for the D's, but it's all elementary from here.
And just you talk about stats there, and I had a look at the stats last night of the game. We had 72 inside 50s to 44, so we really dominated that aspect of the game. But we were a real kicking team. Like we've had 332 possessions for the game, but 226 of those are kicks. It was really something that we focused on getting the ball moving forward as quickly as we possibly can. So, those 220 odd kicks, that's why you're getting such numbers like 72 inside 50s.
Shots of the Australian Olympic team ahead of the 2000 Olympics with Ian Thorpe and Michael Klim there, Jeff Hugel. So, of course, such a big moment for the country at that stage. Essendon leading by 66 points. What about, was Sheeds part of the celebrations? Would he kick on with the team?
Oh, yeah, Sheeds was great. He was just one of the boys. That's what made him such a great coach. He just was one of the lads, but just didn't win the draw the line, but between being a friend and a coach, but did it very, very well. But he was front and centre at most of our celebrations and most of our footy trips. He was very, very good fun.
And we're so fortunate with the assistant coaches we had. Mark Harvey, Robert Shaw, Terry Danaher were, the 3 real main ones, and then you had Rob Kerr and Dean Bailey as the other 2. And then Matthew Drain as a football manager. It was a really, really good football department. Those guys suited the team down to the ground, just the way they treated us and the way they coached us.
There is one other person here at the table who's an Essendon fan, so I'm mindful we need to let him call the end of the game because Joe Mercedes and Adam Ramanaskas. But Corbin Middlemass, you grew up a Bombers fan. How old were you when this took place?
I was 9. I remember watching it at my cousin's house. It was pretty lopsided. As a 9-year-old, I was pretty keen to go outside and kick the footy, I think, halfway through the last quarter, given that Essendon were winning by such a wide margin. Mentioned earlier, for some reason, I seem to remember more moments, maybe because I was a year older, of the heartbreak of 2001 more than the 2000 grand final, but I did watch it a fair bit going back as a kid.
There is a famous photo of you and Adam Ramanauskas.
That was at Claremont Oval, actually, which was I don't know if you guys remember that, when you used to come over a lot when you went to Perth, and you'd always have a junior clinic. I was actually, not to name drop here, but I was with Brandon Matera that day, who our parents worked together, both my mum and his mum, and he was a diehard Essendon supporter growing up, despite the fact he carries, obviously, the famous West Coast surname. His auntie was an Essendon supporter, so as a result, he grew up a Bombers fan, so we would always go to these junior clinics together, and every time the team come over, we'd be running around kicking footies with the players and having photos, which was great fun every time that you guys came out west.
Sheets was bigger than that one.
He created that.
He did.
Now, and Sheets tells the story all the time, from the amount of fans Essendon had when he started in the early 80s to when he left the football club. I think Essendon have, I think it's something like 1 million supporters Australia-wide.
Wow.
And so, Sheets has always said, well, how do you turn those supporters into members and sort of paying customers almost of the football club? So he turned the Essendon Football Club from a suburban club into a national club.
So would that be every state that you would go to?
100%. Every interstate game, we'd do something a day before. And if Sheeds could sneak it in, if we played a night game, the day of and the day after. Sometimes we didn't love doing it sometimes, but we knew what he was trying to do. And now, as an older statesman, and I can see exactly what he was trying to do and how well it actually did work.
So how would he articulate that to you guys, or would it just be part of the deal? Everyone would know that we're on the road, we're doing at least a junior clinic somewhere.
That was just part of the schedule.
Pretty much, if you don't, you're not playing next week.
Yeah. And did it fall away after he left?
I'm not sure.
You guys, I guess, were really down on the Sheets, weren't you?
Yeah. Here's one. I get asked the question all the time, who's your favourite senior coach? I said, I only have one, so I don't know.
Of course.
Essendon by 66 points. We're in the final quarter of our 2000 recall. Matt Clinch, Corbin Middlemass, Adam Ramanauskas and Joe Mercedes. So I just want to ask you about 2001, given the following year you went on and won 17-5, I think, for the season. Was it hard to back up the following pre-season after 2000, having had such a successful year?
I don't think it was hard. I think we did everything pretty right, but it's about 4 or 5 of us that missed about 10 or 12 weeks of that year. People didn't realise. I missed about 10 weeks, and most of us come back maybe 1-2 games before the finals. So we weren't cherry ripe as we should be for a final series, and then come up against the rampaging Brisbane Lions. Because if you go back to the prelim, we were lucky to win the prelim against Hawthorn. They were coming home, and Crode kicked that, so it was about 70 metres from the centre square and hit the top of the post. If he kicks that, I reckon he'll nearly beat us, and we're lucky to kick the goal late to get into the grand final.
So Melbourne with the footy across their half-forward line as Powell picks it up, straightens up.
We were 2 injured in that grand final. Like the week before, hurt his groin. Mark McCurry severely rolled his ankle, and those 2 guys were playing. Joe spoke about the guys that had missed large chunks of the season. Well, we were up by 3 goals at half time, and we just couldn't maintain it anymore. It was a really hot day as well in Melbourne for that grand final. I think it was 30 degrees that day, and Brisbane were such a super team, which is clearly evident when they go on and win 3 in a row. But we're just far too injured for that game.
The kick found Farmer, who moves in and slots it, so he puts it through, and the margin back to 10 goals neat, 134-74.
And you look at it and people go, is it a shame that you didn't win 3 when the club potentially could have? But you won 1, and it's very, very difficult to win 1 premiership. And not only did we win the premiership, the football club had the greatest year of any team ever. So I'm okay with that.
Adam Ramanauskas and Joe Mercedes with you. So Jeff Farmer booted 3. As we're in the final 5 minutes of the match, the Bombers leading by 60 points, 19-20, 134 to Melbourne. 10-8-74.
Another great story to come out of the game, boys, is Dean Wallace and Johnny Barnes, best of mates.
Yeah, best of mates.
Have been for ages and got to finally play with each other with their first year together and got a flag together. So that was a pretty special moment. You'll see a pretty decent embrace from them both after the final siren.
So Did they play together initially at Essendon before John?
Yeah.
Where did the friendship sort of grow?
Nah, from their first days at Essendon, a similar age, they were both playing pretty much in the twos and were both ratbags, and so they got along famously.
Mentioned as Essendon had the footy here on the members' wing, Solomon heading down to half forward. Lucas gives it back to Solomon, keeps on running, centering ball, and Moorcroft takes the mark at centre half forward. Mentioned the nightclub across the road from Crown, I think, where you guys went later that night. Does the Cup make the trip to the nightclub, or who's responsible for...
The Cup made the trip.
Is there someone responsible to make sure the Cup makes it in and makes it home, or who?
Well, I think if that Cup is...
It wasn't Rama or I.
No way. I was looking at that Cup recently. It's got a couple of dints in it.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's the original?
That's the original.
Here's Moorcroft. Set shot. Just misses. Slides out to the right.
It's a great way to get to a nightclub that's got a long line.
Yeah.
If you take the Premiership Cup with you, you get straight in.
Sure you guys wouldn't have had any problems that night.
It was just a terrific week. We had a parade down Puckle Street, I think, on the Wednesday, and they set us up upstairs at a room on the Thursday night races at Moonee Valley. So we had the best and fairest on the Friday night, I think. So it just continued on and on and on, the celebrations.
Essendon 19-21, 135 to Melbourne 11, 874. The kick inside 50 Hurd just couldn't quite complete the mark, and Robinson running out of defence takes a bounce. We just saw Jack Jones on the monitor a few moments ago, obviously sadly passed away this year, but his impact at the Essendon Football Club will live on for a long time.
One of the most beautiful people you'll meet. Such a kind and gentle soul, and he would take tour groups through the club constantly, but the impact and influence that he had at the football club will never be forgotten.
He was unbelievable, and he took a special interest in me because I wore 24, as did he. So he was just a great man. I still couldn't believe how actually old he was because he looks so good for his age. And he was just a really, really great fella to have around the club and would do anything for anyone.
That's something that's forgotten a little bit. Sheeds loved having ex-players at the football club, loved it. If you played one game or 300 games, you're a player, you're an ex-player at the Essendon Football Club, and you're always welcome.
How does Essendon do the past players now?
They're pretty good. They have a number of functions still every year, and for past players, we're fortunate enough that we catch up as a group of premiership players a couple of times a year as well. So the club have got a very big past players group. They've got their own committee, and they look after anybody that's in any hardship at any time through their life after their career.
So wide margin on the scoreboard, currently sitting at some 61 points, and here is Joe Mercedes, takes the mark.
I reckon I should kick a torp here.
From 70 metres out.
You want to have the footy in your hands when the siren sounds. It'll take you a while.
I was actually thinking that. I think it's just the siren's close. Wouldn't it be nice to finish the game with the footy in your hand?
So Joey, he won Best Finals Player. He's had 41 and 4 goals in the qualifying final. I think he had 30 plus in the prelim.
Yeah.
And then he's had 26 in the grand final. So it was a fair final series for Joe.
Jeff White marked the kick inside footy. He was one of Melbourne's best that day. Zingerson's hand pass away to Collins. Kicks off centre half back to Walsh. Who marks. He's going to hand it inside to McDonald, strolling through the middle of the G.
Kicks long to the forward line. Robinson up. Almost juggled the mark. Couldn't complete it. Neats back onto it. He'll snap around his shoulder and miss to the left-hand side. So 60 points neat. 19-21. 135 Essendon to Melbourne 11-9 75.
Video camera out in the coach's box. Just trying to get all the reactions from inside.
I'd love to see a lot more of that behind-the-scenes footage. But I'd love to see more of in the rooms before the game, because I'm sure there was a camera in there. Because your memory is really hazy of all those moments inside the room. So I'd love to see us warming up and the like. So I'm sure the club have got that footage somewhere, and hopefully it comes out one day.
It is a good time for documentaries, Ramo. We might have to chat to someone. If they've got that vision, we'll make a nice package as Kevin Sheedy makes his way amongst the fans down to the boundary line. And as you can imagine, plenty of high fives and celebrations, and he's got a massive smile on his face.
The kick ends up with Solomon. More applause for Kevin Sheedy, who's now down on the playing arena. The kick from Solomon ends up inside 50 with Ingerson. Melbourne through centre half back as Ward takes a bounce. Essendon by 60 points at the moment. His kick intercepted as Hardwick takes the mark. Lays it off by hand. The kick from Johnson comes out to McCurry, who marks it half forward for Essendon.
Kicks it into the pocket, looking for Lloyd down low. Couldn't complete the mark. Ingerson trying to knock it away. Can't do so. Solomon trying to burst his way through. And the umpire will come and ball it up with he and Collins wrestling for the footy. And there is the siren for the 2000 Grand Final. Essendon victorious by 60 points. Their 16th premiership and their first premiership since 1993. Just the one loss in the home and away side, and they will go down as one of the most successful sides in AFL history. Adam Ramanauskas and Joe Mercedes with their memories as the siren sounded in the 2000 Grand Final.
Oh, that's the way you play footy for, mate. You train for 10 months of the year. Your first 4 months is just torture with the pre-season, then you get into the games. But as I said, it's people just see the end result on the day, but there's so many backstories. There's one there with Dan Rioli, as Remy mentioned before. Would have been probably the only change we would have made in the grand final side. But, yeah, just here, embracing your mates after winning the ultimate you can in AFL football.
Just excitement. I think the initial part of it is that you're a premiership player. It's what every footballer dreams to want to do in their career. And, I was able to experience that in my second year with such a group of players that are, now that you've got a connection with for the rest of your life. But the other part of it's relief. The relief of such a long year, and then being able to say that you actually did it. The year before, the club is so close, and they're a point away from a grand final. And then, we take all before us in the 2000 season. So the beauty of that is nobody can ever say you're not a premiership player. And, I'll forever have my name in the history books at Essendon. Joey will forever have his name in the history books at the Essendon Football Club. And it's something that will always remain so special to me.
Does time feel sped up or slowed down when this happens? Like when you're out there on the ground in the aftermath? Like to watch the vision back, does it bring back memories, or is it all just a blur?
There's a lot of things. As I said, I've only watched this game a couple of times, and not for a long time, but there's so many things that you don't remember actually happening. And this has actually slowed down a fair bit, and the embracing and the happiness and the smiles you bring to all the staff, mate. But it was really, really good to watch. And as I said, there's a fair few things I missed on the replay.
Is the song? So just moments after the final siren, I remember the call from Bruce McAvaney on the television coverage where he said, you can argue forever who's the best team of all time, but there's little doubt that this is the best season that we've ever seen. To see a team go through and win 31 out of 32 games for the year, including the pre-season, when you still played for a trophy and it still meant something back in the day, and to be able to win all those games throughout a year is just a ridiculous season as a footy team. To be part of something like that when the side's absolutely humming.
It's a pretty big year. I think so. I did a podcast during the week, and the bloke I did it with actually brought up a decent stat. I think that our average winning margin in the finals is about 75 points over the 3 games. So It was a pretty dominant display. And even today in the grand final, we probably should have, I reckon, won by probably 15 goals, maybe more, if we kicked straight and didn't take our foot off the gas in that last probably 10-15.
Shots to the Melbourne players on the screen. It's not often the Cinderella story for other clubs. Melbourne hadn't played in a grand final since 1988, and it's probably not a memorable day for a lot of their supporters, given they fought so hard to get there. But in the end, they were blown off the park.
Yeah, and we were just so confident in our own ability that we knew if we played anywhere near our best, that we were going to beat anybody on any given day. Something would have had to have gone horribly wrong within a game for us to lose. That's how confident we were in our game, but that's how confident we were in each other. And it's a pretty special feeling when you can run out on the ground and you feel like that. Okay, if we play anywhere near our best, we're going to win week in, week out. And that was the feeling in 2000. Once we got on a roll, it was really, really hard to stop that momentum.
How does it sit with you now, 20 years on, to be the last premiership team at Essendon?
Oh, it's pretty disappointing, to be honest. And the last final they won was the year I retired, so it seems such a long time ago. As an Essendon fan and an Essendon past player, it's quite disappointing. Obviously, they've had their down moments in the last 4 or 5 years, but hopefully we see something. We see something soon, because I know a lot of the supporters and the faithfuls are losing a little bit of interest, because Essendon are such a powerful club and supporters expect Essendon to play finals every year, and it hasn't happened for so long.
Well, it's the longest drought in the club's history now. We're between premierships, so when I first came into the club, it was drilled into me that Essendon play in finals and win finals, and that was drilled into me from the moment I walked through the front door at the Essendon Football Club. So, now they're obviously they're playing finals. They played finals obviously last year, but they just can't get over the line at the moment. So, a couple of changes. I think they've got the artillery there as a football club. There's no doubt about that. But they've just got to get over that hurdle. I think once they get over that hurdle, you'll see a really strong Essendon team again.
How was the experience to sit down and relive it 20 years on for 4 quarters?
It's pretty good. I could have done it with a decent bloke instead of Rammer, but it was great. It's great to watch, and it has been fun. Although I knock him so much, Rammer's a great mate of mine, obviously, because we play footy together, but we share the same interests, which is drinking beer. So we've got a common theme there, but it's just great to sit down, and you blokes did a fantastic job, and just great to relive it again, because there's not so many times you sit down and just flick a game of yourself playing. Rammer probably does it, but I don't, so it's just good to watch it. It would have been nice with an Esky here somewhere, boys, but that might be for next time.
So when the reunions do take place, who tells the best stories?
Oh, Paul Barnard. Paul Barnard's gone from kicking 4 goals to 8 goals in 20 years.
Well, Paul Barnard still blames him starting on the bench to cost him and Norm Smith. He goes, if I kicked 4.5, I would have kicked 8 if I played the whole game. So
that's the one part that we have so much fun together when we get together, but the group was really humble. There weren't many big heads, well, there weren't any big heads really amongst the group, and I think that still rings true now. We still try to stay in contact as much as we can. Everyone's obviously leads different lives, and a few live in different states, but you still try to stay in contact. And when we do get together, it feels like you were at the club yesterday with them. Yep. It doesn't feel like it's 20 years ago that you haven't seen them. It just feels like, I saw you at the club last week. So you just kick off that relationship from basically where you left it off. So you see guys more than others. And, I see Joe a bit, I see Solly a bit, I see the Jonos a fair bit, Fletcher a fair bit. So you do see guys like that. But the other guys that you don't see, it doesn't feel like it's been 20 years that you haven't played that game with them.
We really appreciate you coming in, particularly Joe. Rama, you're part of our team. We see you all the time here on Grandstand AFL. Thanks heaps for coming in and reliving it with us.
No worries, boys. It's been a pleasure.
A lot of fun.
That's it for this edition of Grandstand AFL, a special recall of the 2000 Grand Final.